Full Metal Storm, Battle of the Machines. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 70. The second phase of the battle begins. Whoosh. A strong wind blew from nowhere, blowing away the thick clouds in the sky. The moon appeared in the night sky. The moonlight fell, revealing the shape of the black shadow. The creature appeared in the moonlight. Bird head, human body, 4 wings, 2 claws. Guho bird. On the magpie-like head of this flying beast, there was a woman's face. The face looked young, with beautiful features and rosy lips. But the woman closed her eyes and seemed to be asleep. The body was like that of a human woman, with heavy breasts and a flat belly. It was covered with dark green feathers. The plumpest part of the feathers was on the 4 wings, and the thinnest part was on the belly. Guho bird showed an expression of listening attentively, and after a moment, it flapped its 4 wings and flew towards the direction of the gymnasium. In just a blink of an eye, it had already arrived above the gymnasium. But it did not enter the gymnasium immediately. Guho bird circled in the sky very vigilantly, circle after circle. In this process, on its head, the 2 eyes on the woman's face opened. These 2 eyes glowed red, like 2 flames burning quietly. It allowed the Guho bird to see everything on the earth. From large buildings to small caterpillars, everything was clear. However, because it was looking down from the sky, it did not see the 3 mechs hiding under various things. So the Guho bird thought there was nothing wrong with the ground, and suddenly gathered its 4 wings, and rushed to the ground and the track and field at an extremely fast speed. This action, like an osprey hunting, was its habit. Such a hunting action can not only quickly capture the target, but also quickly return to the sky, to avoid encountering natural enemies on the ground. Just as the Guho bird rushed to the track and field, the voice of a tactical staff member sounded in the headphones of Jiuying and others. It's fooled. Begin the action. The second phase of the operation begins. Immediately, 3 mechs rushed out from their hiding place. When running towards the gymnasium, the 2 mechs King Kong and Ranger were already forming seals. Jiuying ejected the chain blade hidden in the wrist of the mecha. At the same time, Yuanli rushed into the acupuncture points. K and wheel. In the stadium track and field, Guho bird had already dived to the ground and pecked at a baby carriage at an extremely fast speed. The ground was like being hit hard by a pile driver, and the whole stadium shook slightly. The baby carriage was shattered into pieces, and at the same time, a tablet computer placed in the car was shattered. As soon as the tablet computer fell apart, the sound of the baby crying immediately disappeared. A flash of surprise flashed across the face of the woman of Guho bird, which was very humane. Just as it was about to flap its wings, 2 thick black ropes broke through the air and entangled its legs, one on the left and one on the right, in 2 directions. The camouflage painted ranger flexibly jumped over the wall of the stadium and entered the track and field. The heavily armored Black King Kong savagely smashed the wall and rushed in. Both mechas used the number 1 mysterious technique, black rope, and successfully entangled the legs of Guho bird. Guho bird was frightened and wanted to fly, but how could it fly with 2 mechs weighing nearly 2,000 tons on its legs? At this moment, behind the Guho bird, the white dragon soared into the sky. The mecha's energy furnace was fully powered, and all the engines were roaring. The white dragon's chest was shining with blue light. The silver-white fuselage was like a dragon descending from the sky. It landed on the back of the Guho bird. The mecha stepped on the Guho bird with both feet. It stepped on the ground and pressed heavily into the grass of the track and field. Without hesitation, Jiuying calmly controlled the mecha and swung the chain blade. He activated the combat skill, Thunder. With one sword, he cut off one of the wings of the Guho bird. The Guho bird suddenly let out a sharp scream. Visible sound waves spread out. All the windows of all the buildings in the gymnasium exploded at the same time. For a moment, Jiuying, Li Boheng, and Zengshan, the eardrums of the 3 people were buzzing and stinging. At the same time, the ears of the 3 people were bleeding. This is still protected by the mecha. If they were exposed to the track and field without defense, the 3 would probably explode directly. This is the sonic boom of the Guho bird. Luo Yan gritted his teeth and injured the buzzing in his ears. He used his fighting skills again and cut off the two wings of the Guhou bird. The huge wings fell heavily to the ground and countless colorful wing lice fell out of the feathers of the wings. Then he flew in the air, spreading poison powder, making a gorgeous colorful mist all around the Guhou bird. The Guhou bird itself is not afraid of these poisonous powders. On the contrary, the colorful mist formed by these poisonous powders can protect it. At this time, the Guhou bird, which only had one wing left, suddenly tightened all the feathers on its wings and arranged them densely. At the same time, a metallic luster appeared on those feathers. It was as if these feathers instantly became as hard as steel. The Guhou bird flapped its wings violently and swept horizontally. Luo Yan took a deep breath. The whole person almost jumped up from the chair. The white dragon empathized with him and made a jump action almost without delay. But the wings of Guhou bird still passed through his chest. The wingtip passed through the mecha. The surface of the mecha immediately lit up with a yellow light of Yuanli. Then a string of sparks splashed out. Although it was blocked by the Yuanli defense layer, the chest armor of the white dragon was still torn open. Through this hole, the internal engine and many circuits can be seen. After the sonic boom, Guhou bird showed its feather knife. After forcing Luo Yan away, it continued to use the feather knife to cut off the two black ropes wrapped around its legs. Then it made a wing lifting movement. The feathers on the three wings on the ground stood up, then detached from the wings, and flew towards Guhou bird, combining three hidden wings without skeletons, only feathers, at the part of its broken wings. It's leaving, stop it. In the command center of the high-speed railway station, the tactical staff shouted excitedly at the screen. In the stadium track and field, White Dragon, King Kong, and Ranger all made moves at the same time. Luo Yan drove the mecha and rushed forward with all his might, locking onto the remaining wing of Guhou bird. Guhou bird turned its head, faced White Dragon, and opened its mouth to make a sonic boom. Visible sound waves formed an impact, covering White Dragon. Several cracks immediately appeared on the panoramic window of the mecha. Luo Yan's ears were hurt by the explosion, and he bled again. But he had no intention of retreating at all. His Yuanli surged, and he ran viewing mountains and seas with all his strength. Through the mecha amplification, the surroundings of White Dragon suddenly appeared with blurred shadows of mountains condensed by bright yellow light. This greatly enhanced the defensive performance of White Dragon, rushing forward against the sonic boom. In the command center of the high-speed railway station, seeing this scene, the tactical staff could no longer sit still. They stood up. Charge. 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 The next second White Dragon rushed out of the circle of sound waves. The chain blade swept across, turning into a dazzling lightning. The Guhou bird also fought hard. The feathers on its wings were closely arranged to form a blade, and it slashed fiercely at the White Dragon. Chapter 71, Head Grabbing. In an instant, Luo Yan's eyes became blank, as if he was staring into the distance. In those red eyes, dots of silver appeared, like stars dotted with the crimson moon. Barrier-breaking Dharma Eye. In Luo Yan's vision, the feather knife chopped down by the Guhou bird was surrounded by a series of constantly changing numbers. Strength, speed, angle, sharpness. Numbers representing different meanings. A large amount of information made Luo Yan's eyes ache. A little bright red oozed out at the corners of both eyes. At this moment, the information suddenly integrated itself. At the same time, the speed of the feather knife slashing down became extremely slow, like a snail. At the same time, pieces of afterimages appeared. Those afterimages combined the movement trajectory of the feather knife, making Luo Yan vaguely aware that this knife would hit the engine of the mecha and destroy the main engine. At the same time, Luo Yan had a special feeling. The barrier-breaking Dharma Eye seemed to be breaking through. However, there was still a lack of some kind of opportunity. The next second, the speed of the feather blade fell back. Those afterimages and movement tracks also disappeared. But with the previous experience, it was enough for Luo Yan to make adjustments. He shifted the mecha by 30 degrees. Instead of slashing straight into the engine, the feather blade passed through the chest, and the wingtip of the Guhou bird slashed into the left shoulder of the mecha. In the cockpit, Luo Yan groaned. The existence of the empathy system made him feel a sudden slump and pain in his left shoulder. He felt that his arm was about to be chopped off. At the same time, a flash of determination flashed in his red eyes. The chain blade pushed forward. The electric shock swept across. The only remaining wing of the Guho bird was broken at the root. The black and red blood spurted into the air like a fountain. The Guho bird screamed and could not keep its balance. The body that had just risen fell again. Destroy its hidden wings. Li Bohong's voice sounded on the public channel. The ranger held up the sniper rifle Langan of amazing length with 2 arms. The third arm behind him raised the Shenwei rifle, pointing at the left and right hidden wings of the Guho bird respectively. Fire! The sound of rifle bursts and the roar of sniper rifles merged together, playing a powerful note. The 2 hidden wings of the Guho bird, which were composed of countless feathers, were blown to pieces by the blast, and the other was blown to pieces by the blast of the dragon. There is only one left. Watch me. Zheng Shan, who was in the cab, roared and made the arm of the King Kong holding the demon subduing stick spin rapidly. With the support of special components, the hand of the King Kong holding the demon subduing stick rotated like the propeller of a helicopter. The demon subduing stick, which rotated like a roulette, swept across the last hidden wing of the Guho bird. Suddenly, black feathers fluttered in the sky. The Guho bird, which lost all its wings, fell heavily to the ground, raising a dust storm, and scattered grass leaves and feathers everywhere. In the temporary command center in the waiting hall of the high-speed railway station. Seeing this scene, the students who were staff officers cheered. Destroy the wings of the Guho bird, including the hidden wings. Paralyzing its ability to fly is the sign of success in the second phase of the battle. Next, it is the third phase, which is also the final phase of the battle. Come on. Come on. You can do it. The encouragement of classmates rang out in the headphones of Luo Yan and the other 2. The corners of the other 2's mouths lifted slightly and smiled. Luo Yan ignored them and looked at the Guho bird on the ground. The battle is not over yet. At this time, the Guho bird on the ground suddenly jumped up. Then circles of dark blue halos appeared in the eyes of the woman's face. These halos kept spinning. As these halos rotated, Luo Yan suddenly felt his head sink. Then his thoughts became confused. As soon as one thought came up, another thought popped up. It made it difficult for him to concentrate. This is another ability of the Guho bird, chaos. While Luo Yan's thoughts were confused, the Guho bird jumped up and pounced on Luo Yan. It hated the white dragon mecha driven by Luo Yan. Now it just wanted to dismantle this steel giant into parts. It really has this ability. Because of the amazingly long claws on its legs, it can easily tear through steel. Lao Luo, Zheng Shan, who was closest to Luo Yan, saw this scene and roared, letting King Kong run forward. While running, King Kong took off the huge shield behind him. He raised the huge shield with the swastika print above his head. At the critical moment, King Kong blocked the body of Bei Long. In the cab, Luo Yan had just recovered from the Chaos God. He saw the back of King Kong appear outside the panoramic window. Then the Guho bird fell from the sky. The dozen claws on its legs were like sharp blades, scratching the shield on King Kong's head and causing sparks to fly. Luo Yan's breathing sank. From this angle, if King Kong hadn't provided timely cover, the claws of the Guho bird might have been active in the cab of Bei Long. He would have been torn to pieces by these claws. On the other side, the ranger used 3 arms to fire at the Guho bird with the sniper rifle Langan and the Shenwei rifle. The Guho bird knew it was powerful and lowered its head so that the ranger could not shoot it in the head. At the same time, it arched the feathers on its back and each feather became as hard as steel. It was used to resist the attack of the ranger. King Kong swung his arms at the same time and used the giant shield to push the Guho bird to the right. Just as the Guho bird fell out, White Dragon suddenly flashed out from behind King Kong. The mecha lowered its center of gravity. Its legs slid on the ground. It plowed 2 deep grooves on the ground of the track and field. White Dragon pressed the ground with his left hand. All engines roared at the same time. A dazzling blue light shot out from the chest of the mecha. The powerful power made White Dragon rush towards the Guho bird like lightning, and the chain blade in his right hand was electrified again, passing by the side of the giant beast. The Guho bird made an earth-shaking cry. Although its abdomen has steel feathers, the feathers here are too thin compared to other parts. So the steel feathers broke. and a crack appeared on the exposed abdomen. Suddenly, blood gushed out, and the internal organs slid out. Hot smoke rose due to the high temperature. The whole track and field was suddenly filled with a disgusting smell of blood. On the other side, the white dragon slid more than 400 meters after passing by the Guho bird due to inertia. It stopped when it was about to crash into the gymnasium building. At this time, the Guho bird was not dead yet. It ignored the internal organs that had slid out of its abdomen and ran outside the gymnasium, trying to escape. Li Bohan calmly controlled the ranger, let the mecha half crouch on the ground, and steadily raised the sniper rifle Langan. Then, with the help of the computer, he wanted to put the Guho bird's head into the crushes. Now that the Guho bird was seriously injured, it could not immediately make the feathers steel. This provided conditions for a headshot. Seeing that Guho bird was about to cross the wall of the gymnasium in one step, Li Bohan just completed the lock. But before he could shoot, Guho bird's head suddenly exploded. From its shattered skull and brain, a flash of red light burst out. It instantly crossed the track and field, passed in front of the white dragon, and finally blasted into the gymnasium building behind the mecha. The gymnasium building was blown open on the spot, creating a huge gap that penetrated the building. In the cab, looking at the faint bullet track outside the panoramic window, Luo Yan's eyes suddenly turned cold. Obviously, there were other teams shooting coldly, grabbing the heads. Chapter 72, Taking an Unconventional Approach. In this actual combat test, the academy stipulates that for each lower level behemoth that is killed, the whole team will be awarded 1000 credits. For a mid-level behemoth, the credits are 2000. Then during the test, the judges will give additional credits based on the performance of each team. For example, Luo Yan defeated the orange cat before and was awarded an additional 200 credits by the judges. Personal rewards will be included in the group's overall evaluation. That is why the score of Group A in the first year will temporarily lead. In terms of the judgment of behemoth killing, the academy stipulates that the one who gives a behemoth a fatal blow and makes its energy spectrum disappear is the killer. Now, in the command center of the high-speed rail station waiting hall, the students who play the role of staff officers are collectively speechless. They are stunned, watching the head of the Guho bird on the screen smashed, watching the energy spectrum representing the behemoth disappear in the corner of the screen. Then, the judges gave the score information. Lizzie from Group B in the first year killed the mid-level behemoth Guho bird. Give the whole team 2000 credits as a reward. Class B is currently in the lead. Students from other teams, please keep working hard. Suddenly, the command center exploded. This is unfair. Are you kidding me? It's obvious that Group B stole our heads, but the teacher actually gave them points. There's something fishy going on. There's something fishy going on. Group B, you guys are so fucking shameless. You actually hid behind our backs and shot us in the back, stealing the credit. Soon, a student complained to the judging panel. The judging panel responded quickly. The credits awarded just now will not change. For a while, the students in Group A were indignant. In the gymnasium track and field, Zheng Shan opened the public channel and cursed at Group B, using the skills of a troll to the fullest. On the other side of Group B, Lizzie, who had snatched the head, responded in the public channel. Student Zheng, how can you say such a thing with your 36-degree mouth? The college has a rule that you can't shoot cold guns, snatch heads. Since there is no rule, then I'm not wrong. And you see, the judges also said that they will maintain the original judgment. What does this mean? It means that the teachers also think that I did nothing wrong. I know you are not convinced. It is very depressing that a woman snatched the spoils of war from you three grown men. But you are boys. Can't you be more generous? Don't quibble with a little girl like me over trivial matters, right? Zheng Shan was so angry that his face turned red and he roared with a thick neck. Is this a trivial matter? How long have we been preparing to hunt this giant beast? In the end, you snatched it away without saying a word. If it were you, would you be generous and not care about it? Lizzie smiled and said, I won't. But I'm a woman. Isn't being stingy a woman's patent? At this time, Luo Yan's voice rang out in the public channel. Stop arguing. Then, Luo Yan used the group channel to say, "Next, Li Boheng and Zheng Shan, you two continue to hunt the beasts. I'll keep an eye on Group B." Li Boheng immediately understood what Luo Yan meant. He wanted to fight back. He wanted to snatch the heads of Group B. Zheng Shan also knew that he couldn't kill Group B, no matter how much he scolded them, so he could only angrily turn off the public channel. Second year Group A inside the command center of the camp. Yang Likai exclaimed in amazement, "This class of freshmen is really amazing. They stole other people's credit and asked them not to be petty with them. She has said all the reasons." Liu Ruohan, who was drinking water next to him, smiled and said, "What she said is actually not wrong. The college has no rules that we cannot steal the credit of other groups. We suffered a loss in this regard when we were in the first year. Foolishly thought it was fair competition. However, when it comes to stealing credit, you have to look at the object. If it's a soft persimmon, I'll just steal it. But that classmate Lee could steal from anyone, but he chose Group A of the first year. Our classmate Luo is not the kind of person who doesn't care about women. I think Group B of the first year will suffer next." When Yang Likai saw the goddess taking over the conversation, he struck while the iron was hot and asked with a smile, "Ruohan, what do you think classmate Luo will do?" Liu Ruohan took a sip of fresh water and said, "If it were me, of course I would return the favor the way they treat me." Yang Lix's eyes lit up. "You mean, Luo will go to Group B to steal their heads?" Liu Ruohan stood up and said, "It's getting late. I'm going to sleep first, and I'll go hunt that Guru tomorrow." Yang Lixi immediately stood up and said, "Wait a minute. I brought mosquito repellent spray. I'll spray your tent first. I guarantee you'll sleep well tonight." On the other side of the city, in the camp of Group B of the first year. "Long live Easy. Student Lee, you're awesome. Yeah, haha. Our group has jumped to the first place in a short time. Let's see who dares to look down on us now." Amid the compliments of his classmates, Li Zi did not lose himself. The ordinary looking girl pushed her thick glasses and said, "There are too many talented people in our class. There's no need to talk about classmate Luo. Among the freshmen, he is the most famous. Even the seniors know him. Others. Classmate Li Boheng is a master of shooting and is good at planning and commanding, especially the latter, and is highly regarded by the teachers. And classmate Lin Wei, she is knowledgeable and versatile, and I heard that she has also studied the writing of that world. Recently, she was asked by the city's archaeological team to help translate a batch of newly unearthed stone tablets. Otherwise, we don't know who among our pilots will be squeezed out by her." Li Zi sighed and said, "Although I don't want to do such a despicable thing, but if I don't show off and leave an impression on the instructors, I'm afraid it will be difficult to get ahead." The other two mecha pilots, Lin Cheng and Shen Yu, also nodded gently. They are all students who are not particularly talented. If you want to stand out, you really have to take a different approach to have hope. Shen Yu, who is a bit thin and has an ordinary appearance, said with a little concern, "If our camp had not been closer to the gymnasium this time, classmate Lee would have heard the baby crying and went out to investigate, and he would have had the opportunity to steal the credit from Group A. But in this way, we have a feud with them. I don't know about the others, but classmate Luo will definitely not give up. I bet he will target our group next." Lin Cheng snorted and said, "So what? Can he take down our entire team by himself? Unless their group does nothing but target us. Otherwise, I don't think there is any need to worry too much." Chapter 73 Both Sides. Li Zi took off his glasses, wiped the lenses with the corner of his clothes and said, "It's unlikely that the entire team of Group A will come to target us. I think it's more likely that classmate Luo Yan will act alone." Lin Cheng, with a hideous scar on his cheek, said loudly, "It doesn't matter who comes, I will take action. If classmate Luo wants to fight me in close combat, I'm happy to accompany him. His Shenzang iron armor is very suitable for close combat, and Lin Cheng specializes in combat skills, and the visualization technique has been cultivated to the primary third level." His words are not aimless. Li Zi shook his head and said, "No, I'm more suitable to deal with classmate Luo. Classmate Lin, you are our main force in hunting giant beasts, and I'm just an auxiliary in cover. My coming to greet classmate Luo will not have much impact on our entire team." but without you, it will be difficult for us to kill the giant beast. Obviously, one Guho bird is not enough for us to gain the attention of the teachers. We still have to work hard. Shen Yu nodded. Classmate Li is right. We can't give up hunting giant beasts just to deal with classmate Luo. Doing so is throwing away the watermelon to pick up sesame seeds. Lin Cheng did not continue to insist. Okay, then, you all have better brains than me. I listened to you. It was morning. Luo Yan got up very early, after washing up, while eating, holding a tablet, looking at the information of 3 mecha masters in Group B of the first year. Lin Cheng, male. Visualization technique, primary 3rd level. Shen Zhang, super body, iron clothes. Good at close combat, mastering more than 2 combat skills, relying on the iron armor to make every opponent who wants to fight a protracted war with him fall into a nightmare. Shen Yu, male. Visualization, primary 2nd level. Shen Zhang, natural, control the wind. Mastering many mysterious arts. With Shen Zhang, the operation speed of the mysterious arts is faster, and it can change direction in the middle, which is often difficult to prevent. Lizzie, female. Visualization, primary 2nd level. Shen Zhang, super sense, eagle eye. Good at shooting, especially with his Shen Zhang. Can perform ultra long range sniping. After reading the information, Luo Yan's eyes fell on the girl wearing thick glasses. This girl has never had a strong presence in the class, except that she talks a lot. Luo Yan has no impression of her. Unexpectedly, last night, it was such an inconspicuous person in front of him, snatched and killed the Guho bird. Sure enough, the more inconspicuous the person, the more you should pay attention to. Luo Yan said in a voice that he could hear. He took out a small notebook and wrote the name Lizzie on it. Footsteps sounded. Luo Yan put away the notebook. Li Boheng walked over. I've thought about it. After what happened last night, Class B will definitely be on guard against us. But it's impossible for the entire team to remain silent and have everyone guard against us. Therefore, the probability that Lizzie will leave the team and keep an eye on us is relatively high, because she's not good at frontal combat. The same is true for classmate Shen. In their team, the only one who can fight head on is Lin Cheng. So Lin Cheng must stay in the team. Lizzie is most suitable for keeping an eye on people because of her eagle eye. Maybe now, our every move is already under her surveillance. Luo Yan raised his head and said, does the map provided by the academy indicate which places have the highest buildings? Li Boheng handed him his tablet computer. I've marked it for you. If classmate Li wants to monitor us, he must choose high ground as his combat position. This will be very convenient for both surveillance and sniping. Because the actual combat test can only be conducted on the edge of the forbidden area. After narrowing the scope, I think there are only 3 places where classmate Lizzie may appear. They are the landmark buildings of Ghost City, the TV building in the south, the Ferris wheel in the amusement park in the northwest, and the Pearl Tower in the east. From the location point of view, the amusement park is closest to our camp and is also the most convenient place for surveillance. In addition, the camp of Group B may not be far from the gymnasium, so Lizzie will find us and be able to snatch the giant beast. In this case, she may ambush on the road that must be passed through the camp. Then the TV building is the best place. Luo Yan nodded. Li Boheng's deduction was very careful. Not only did he find the places where Lizzie might appear, he also deduced the 2 most likely places. Luo Yan thought about it and stretched out his hand to point at the TV building. She is here. The location of the Ferris wheel in the amusement park is too obvious, and it is too close to the high-speed rail station camp. Let's not talk about whether Lizzie knows that the camp of Group A is here. Just from her personality analysis, Luo Yan doesn't think she has the courage to leave her group too far and fight alone. The TV building is not far from the B group camp. It can be used for attack or defense. It is a very suitable location. No explanation. Luo Yan cleaned up the food in a few bites and set off alone. The vehicle carrying the white dragon left the camp. Gifa City, TV building. On the rooftop, the wind was whistling. Lizzie was lying on the ground with her hair flying, but the eyes behind the glasses were clear. Behind the TV building, the body she was driving, the Swift, was half kneeling on the ground. The body of the Swift was painted in black and white, with smooth lines and few edges and corners. In order to move quickly, the Swift sacrificed the thickness of the outer armor, was not equipped with a shield, and had no other weapons, except the sniper rifle Bailu. For Lizzie, who is good at sniping, once she got into close combat, she had already lost. So she simply abandoned other weapons and shields. With fast movement and ultra long range sniping as her trump card, student Li Boheng's deduction ability is very good. He can definitely deduce that our group B's camp is near the gymnasium from what I did last night. If student Luo wants to retaliate against us, he will definitely come straight to our camp. This is the tallest building near the camp. Here is where I can use my eagle eye ability. Come on. Student Luo. I'll wait for you here. Let's fight it out. Lizzie's eyes kept shrinking like an animal. This is her hidden treasure. Super Sense System, Eagle Eye. When activating Eagle Eye, her visual range reaches an exaggerated 36 kilometers. The visual range is larger and wider than that of normal people. The focus can be adjusted at will, so that insects thousands of meters away can be seen clearly. Under such a field of vision, let alone a mecha, even a fly, it is difficult to escape Lizzie's surveillance. Time passed bit by bit. Not long after, on a road leading to the camp of Group B at the end of the road, a mecha carrier emerged. Lizzie exhaled softly, as expected of Mr. Luo. He didn't even try to hide. He came straight at me. Very violently. Very direct. Chapter 74, Beating. Lizzie immediately jumped up, ran to the edge of the other side of the rooftop, and then rolled down. 1 meter down was the head of the mecha. Lizzie quickly entered the control room. She glanced at the slogan she had posted on the command desk, "Must win." Lizzie took a deep breath. As if to encourage herself, she waved her fist, "Must win." Then there was a busy operation. Soon, her signal was online. The mecha was activated. Jiuying stood up immediately and suddenly became taller than the TV building. Lizzie used the building as a shooting position. She set up the sniper rifle Bailu on the building. In the cab, Lizzie activated Eagle Eye and quickly locked onto the mecha carrier in the distance with the help of the computer. Lizzie first pointed the muzzle at the fuel tank of the carrier, but soon moved to another position. She just wanted to stop Luoyan from moving forward. She didn't want to kill anyone. Killing is prohibited in actual combat tests. Violators will not only be disqualified from the test, but will also be held accountable. Moreover, Lizzie saw what happened to those who wanted to kill Luoyan. She didn't want to be a dead person. Come on. Student Luoyan. Please, just stop here. On a light screen in front of the command console, Lizzie had locked onto the carrier. Shoot. The sniper rifle Bailu shook violently. A hot tongue of fire shot out from the muzzle. The bullet flew out of the chamber. It spun rapidly. It stirred the airflow. It made the TV building, the road, the trees, everything pass by it quickly and go away. In the blink of an eye, it hit the carrier. A blue bullet was embedded in the body of the carrier and released a circle of electromagnetic pulses. Lizzie used a pulse bullet. The purpose was to paralyze the mobility of the mecha in the vehicle, and it used the non-lethal shooting mode. Otherwise, this shot would have blown up the carrier. Now, the entire transport vehicle had a flat tire and moved sideways, sliding several hundred meters on the road and crashing into a building. Then it stopped. In the cab of the Swift, Lizzie breathed a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to observe carefully, she suddenly felt her hands and feet tighten. Through the panoramic window, she suddenly saw that the limbs of the Swift were all bound by chains rising from the ground. Number 3 Mystic Technique, Binding Chains. Seeing the chains on the mecha, Lizzie's mind made a buzzing sound. She knew it was not good. At the same time, the wall of the TV station suddenly shattered. A black shadow crashed in. Lizzie looked back and saw a silver-white mecha covered with waterproof cloth rushing towards him in the splattered gravel. It was the mecha driven by Luoyan, White Dragon. The waterproof cloth on the back of the White Dragon was covered with a lot of leaves and weeds. It looked colorful. In the Giffer City, which is full of plants, it is the best disguise. Lizzie's scalp was tingling. He immediately understood. Originally, Luoyan and the mecha were not in the carrier. Obviously, they used the waterproof cloth as a disguise to approach the TV station from another direction. But the mecha is so tall. Even with camouflage, it is impossible to hide from his eagle eyes. Could it be that the mecha is crawling on the ground? Question mark? Don't say. Lizzie guessed right. After leaving the camp, Luo Yan drove the mecha away from the carrier. Then he put on the waterproof cloth that was made overnight for camouflage. Finally, he adopted a crawling posture with the cover of the city's buildings and trees and circled to the back of the TV station. In order to prevent being noticed by Lizzie, Luo Yan also carefully used the secret method, opening the ghost wheel so that the white dragon could sneak here smoothly. Then when Lizzie accidentally hit the secondary car, he first used the mysterious technique to control the Swift, and then switched the secret technique from the KIR wheel to the KON wheel. Full force burst. In this state, the white dragon burst out with a speed that was not inferior to the Swift. All the engines of the mecha were used to the extreme, and with a slight roar, it sprayed out rolling heat waves. At full speed, the outer armor of the body was trembling slightly. The white dragon rushed towards the Swift with an indomitable and tragic determination, like an angry dragon. The momentum seemed to penetrate the panoramic window, making Lizzie in the cab terrified. So the Swift didn't have time to react. It was hit into the TV building by the white dragon. A small part of the black and white painted body was embedded in the building. The violent collision between the body and the building caused the vibration through the empathy system, causing Lizzie's body to shake uncontrollably. Then she felt a strong pressure on the back of her head. It turned out that Beilong held Swift's head with one hand, lifted it up, pulled it out of the building, and then threw it down fiercely. Bang! Swift's head smashed into the building. The rooftop was shattered. A large amount of rubble and steel bars were ejected and splashed. They hit the mecha. There was a series of dense knocking sounds. Lizzie was even more dizzy from the collision. Then he saw the scene in the panoramic window moving rapidly, with rubble or steel bars flying outside the window. It turned out that Beilong grabbed Swift's head and pushed it violently. The head of the mecha kept colliding with the building. Luo Yang continued to attack the head. Lizzie couldn't even fight back. She couldn't even call for a stop. She had stars in her eyes, accompanied by a strong sense of dizziness. Finally, she couldn't help but vomit out everything she had eaten in the morning in her helmet. She didn't expect Luo Yan to find her. She didn't expect Luo Yan to be so cruel. He didn't hold back at all, because she was a girl. But in fact, Luo Yan had shown mercy. If Lizzie had aimed his gun at the fuel tank of the carrier, the head of Yuan would have been pierced by his sword. He was not so gentle now. He only used his hands, without using the chain sword. After pushing Yuan's apostrophe head out of the other side of the building, White Dragon grabbed one of the enemy plane's arms. Suddenly, he threw it over his shoulder, causing the black and white painted aircraft to hit the ground head first again. This time, Lizzie completely fainted and lost consciousness. It was unknown how long it had been. Lizzie felt her body shaking. This woke her up. She groaned unconsciously. It was not her fault. Now her head was as bad as if it was going to explode. After a few seconds, Lizzie opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was the cab. Then she saw Luo Yan. She thought she had been caught by Luo Yan in the cab of White Dragon. Suddenly, she saw a slogan of must win on the command desk. Lizzie woke up immediately. This is the control console of Swift. Luo Yan stole his mecha and is still controlling Swift, but this is impossible. Each mecha will record the driver's brainwaves and lock the driver's brainwaves. This prevents the mecha from being stolen and controlled by the enemy. But now, Luo Yan is actually controlling his own mecha? How did he do it? And what is he going to do? Where is he going to control Swift to go? Suddenly, Lizzie suddenly had a strong, very bad premonition. Chapter 75. Evil Thoughts in the Human Heart. Falcon Base. Use a mecha carrier to disrupt vision. But he drove mecha to sneak underground. This student Luo Yan is very experienced. I roughly know how he survived on the surface. Ziguangayao, a teacher with a serious lack of hair, said with a smile. The most important thing is that he seems to know in advance where B-level student Li is monitoring. Another teacher said, if it weren't for this, he wouldn't have been able to formulate such a plan. Ziguangayao nodded repeatedly, brave and resourceful. Wen Fenghua coughed twice and said, I think it should be student Li Bohan who locked on student Li Zi's position. Student Li Boheng is careful and may have deduced that the camp of the second year B group is near the gymnasium from the interception of student Li Zi last night. No matter what, the first year A group fought a beautiful counterattack this morning. Ziguangaiao said at this time, look, student Luo is going to enter the cockpit of the Yuan. On the big screen, the white dragon stopped next to Li Zi's mecha. Luo Yan came to the outside of the cab of the Swift, used the emergency switch, opened the cab door and got in. The teachers looked at each other. Student Li Zi seems to be in a coma now. A teacher said hesitantly, Student Luo, you don't want to take the opportunity to retaliate against her, do you? As for what kind of revenge? Of course, it is not very moral. Ziguangaiao's eyes sank slightly and said, Student Luo is quite outstanding in all aspects, but there is one thing that is not good. He has too much killing intention. Of course, this is not a big problem. Extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. However, perhaps we have overlooked another problem. Morality and character. After all, he came from the surface and lived on the surface for 3 years. We all know that in the first year after the giant beast disaster, there was no order on the surface. In that environment, people's evil thoughts will be infinitely serious. Murder, robbery, and even insulting women. These are no longer new things on the surface. Student Luo, has he become twisted? We don't know about this, he said, and then looked at Wei Fenghua. Wei Fenghua is Luo Yan's mentor. Normally, Wei Fenghua should stand up to defend his student at this time. But Wei Fenghua didn't. He just said, turn on the surveillance footage of the Swift cockpit. Soon, the screen showed the footage of the mecha cockpit. Luo Yan came in and unplugged the neuron plug on Li Zi, completely disconnecting her from the mecha. Then he moved Li Zi to one side, took off her helmet, and tied her hands and feet with ropes. Luo Yan's way of tying was very special. He tied Li Zi's hands and feet backwards, exposing the front of her body completely to Luo Yan's sight. But after doing all this, Luo Yan didn't even look at Li Zi. He jumped directly to the driver's seat. He put on his seatbelt. He put his hands on the floating controller. Then he closed his eyes. This scene made the teachers feel slightly relieved. It seems that Luo Yan entered the Swift cockpit not to insult Li Zi, but to drive the mecha. Could it be? Ziguangaiao suddenly understood what Luo Yan wanted to do, and a smile appeared on his face. At this time, a security guard from the college walked in. Dear teachers, Black Hawk Company has sent breakfast. Ziguangaiao shouted, please send it in. Wei Fenghua said, wait. He looked at the security guard. Go and tell the people from Black Hawk Company that we have used it and they are thoughtful. Then he looked at everyone and said, let's eat the food we brought. Ziguangaiao nodded. Okay. Don't have the intention to harm others, but be on guard against others. This is the surface. The surface where anything can happen. The edge of Ghost Hair City. Amid the sound of gunfire and roaring explosions, a huge black shadow passed through several buildings and rushed towards a shopping mall. Quick, quick, quick. Student Shen, stop it. Otherwise this nine-tailed sheep will run away. What nine-tailed sheep? It has a name, called. That name is too difficult to pronounce. Nine-tailed sheep is simpler and easier to remember. In the communication channel, the staff officers of Group B of the first year said one sentence each. And the giant beast called the nine-tailed sheep does have 9 thin and long tails. Don't underestimate its long tails. These tails can whip the target as powerfully as a whip. The force of the whip is also very strong. The outer armor of the body will immediately dent after being whipped. As for trees or buildings, it is not a problem to whip them, and trees will break, and buildings will collapse. The overall image of this giant beast is like a goat. It has 4 ears, and is very sensitive to sound. And the pair of eyes on its back makes its field of vision reach an astonishing range, making sneak attacks a joke. In the morning, after Li Zi set off, Lin Cheng and Shen Yu set off as planned. Yesterday, they found the traces of this giant beast through clues such as fesses. Today, they set a trap and lured the nine-tailed sheep out. Then Lin Cheng and Shen Yu cooperated. Little by little, they forced the giant beast into a dead end. Now one of the giant beast's horns is broken, the eyes on its back are bloody, and several of its tails are broken. As long as they work harder, they can kill this low-level giant beast. At this time, Shenyu drove a black mecha and made seals with both hands so that an invisible solid barrier rose in front of the nine-tailed sheep. Number 3 Mystical Art. Empty wall. The nine-tailed sheep's eyes were blind on the back, and now it relied purely on sound and smell to identify the outside world. It didn't expect that there was an empty wall in front of it. It crashed into it. The empty wall was smashed to pieces. But the nine-tailed sheep was also overturned by the impact of the explosion of the invisible barrier. Behind it, a dark red mecha rushed over. This mecha held a blade in each arm. It suddenly jumped up and landed on the nine-tailed sheep. Lin Cheng roared in the cab. The double blades pierced into the body of the giant beast. Straight through. A large amount of blood gushed out, flooding the nearby ground like a mountain torrent. The nine-tailed sheep roared violently. Hearing this roar, Lin Cheng and Shenyu both trembled physically and mentally. It was as if they were back in their childhood, being thrown into a dark room without a trace of light. This is the ability of the giant beast. Fear. It used this ability to escape from death many times before. Now, using this ability to make Lin Cheng fall into unspeakable panic. The nine-tailed sheep kicked with its two powerful hind legs. Bang! Lin Cheng's mecha was kicked back repeatedly. The nine-tailed sheep immediately jumped up, regardless of the double blades inserted in its body. It turned around and ran away. Kill it quickly. Don't let it run away. The voice of the staff officer in the communication machine brought Lin Cheng back to his senses. He was about to catch up with the prey. At this moment, the nine-tailed sheep's head suddenly exploded. Then, there was a huge sound like a cannon. It sounded between the buildings not far away. P.S. Pronounced as Boshi. The word cannot be typed, so I can only use 2 words to combine it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 76 The Battlefield. Watching the nine-tailed sheep's head bloom like fireworks. Whether it was Lin Cheng in the cab or the students in the command center, they were all silent. Then everyone looked in the direction of the cannon fire. They saw a black and white painted mecha squatting between 2 buildings in a residential area less than a kilometer away from the battlefield. Swift. This mecha was holding the sniper rifle Bailu. The snow-white barrel reflected the sunlight and glittered. There was even blue smoke rising from the muzzle. Seeing that it was Swift, Lin Cheng breathed a sigh of relief and then said on the public channel, "Lizzie, when did you come back? You scared me. I thought we were also robbed of heads. It turned out to be you. You killed the people in Group A? I didn't realize you are quite capable." In another mecha, Shenyu frowned. If Lizzie came to join the battle, why didn't he say hello in advance? And she usually kept a distance of 2 to 3 kilometers from her prey. But now she was shooting within a range of less than 1 kilometer. Suddenly, Shenyu thought of something. He shouted anxiously in the public channel, "Be careful, it might." Before he finished speaking, Swift turned the muzzle of the gun and pointed it at Lin Cheng's mecha. Shoot. Bang. With a roar, Lin Cheng's mecha flew up. Then it fell to the ground and slid a long distance. On the chest of the mecha, there was a blue bullet. The next second, the bullet released an electromagnetic pulse, causing Lin Cheng's mecha to twitch continuously and paralyzed various circuits. In the cab, the lights dimmed. The lights of various instruments flashed, and sparks jumped out. Finally, the mecha stopped moving. The empathy system was turned off without even notifying that it was offline. Lin Cheng was at a loss. A few seconds passed. He took off his helmet and roared, "Lizzie, are you fucking crazy? Why did you use pulse bullets on me?" Of course. Now the mecha system is paralyzed, and the communication has been cut off, so no one heard his shouting. In the command center of the second year B group, all the students who served as staff officers became mute. Looking at the dark red mecha lying on the ground and unable to move on the big screen, they shouted one after another. What is classmate Lizzie doing? Why is he pointing the gun at his own people? Is there a malfunction? Is there anyone who can contact her? She didn't pass our communication request. At this time, someone else shouted, "Look. On the big screen." Yuan turned the gun again and shot at Shenyu's body this time. But Shenyu was prepared. He formed a seal, to release the empty wall and then decisively left the battlefield. Yuan did not chase him, but walked to Lin Cheng's mecha with a sniper rifle. At this time, Lin Cheng had already come out of the cab. Seeing Yuan coming, Lin Cheng roared, "Li Zi, come out and explain yourself clearly." But Li Zi did not respond to him. Yuan just lowered the muzzle of the gun and pointed it at the left arm joint of Lin Cheng's mecha. Bang! The huge gunshot made Lin Cheng's ears hurt. The airflow almost blew him off the mecha. He was stunned. Watching Yuan blow up the joint of his mecha with one shot, the outer armor of the body flew, and the parts were scattered all over the ground. Bang, bang, bang. Yuan fired 3 shots in a row. After blowing up several other joints of the mecha in turn, he pulled out a dagger. He squatted down and began to pry open the armor on the chest of the mecha. Lin Cheng couldn't help it anymore and yelled, "Li Zi, you fucking stop it. Your brain is stuck in the door. Why are you prying my mecha?" Bang! A piece of outer armor panel flew out and hit the side, flattening several cars. Swift ignored him. Not long after, Lin Cheng saw that Swift dismantled the energy furnace of the mecha, cut the connecting wires with a dagger, and turned away. Lin Cheng stood on the mecha. He became like a stone sculpture. When the wind blew, he suddenly felt very cold, especially in his heart. It was so cold. In the command center of the second year group B, the students sat down one by one in despair. They didn't react for a long time. At this time, the announcement of the judges appeared on their big screen. Luo Yan of the first year group A killed the lower level behemoth beast. Give the whole team reward of 1000 credits. Luo Yan of the first year group A won the group B mecha Swift. Give the individual a reward of 1200 credits, which will be counted in the team score. The first year group A is temporarily in the lead, and students from other teams please continue to work hard. Wait. What does this mean? Why did Li Zi blow up the head of the 9-tailed sheep, but reward group A with credits? No way. Could it be that the one who was driving the Swift just now was not Li Zi, but Luo Yan from group A? The command center of group B exploded. At this time, Shen Yu's voice appeared in the public channel. "This is the only explanation. I just had this idea. Now the announcement of the jury has confirmed my thoughts." A male student shook his head and said, "Luo Yan actually stole the Swift. This is too magical." Wait. Even if he stole the Swift, it was our team's mecha that fired the gun. So this behemoth should be counted as ours. Yes, that's unfair. We want to appeal. Soon, Group B filed an appeal to the jury. However, this appeal was quickly rejected. The jury believed that, although it was the Swift that killed the behemoth, the driver was Luo Yan. So the original decision was maintained. Looking at the announcement, the students of Group B were extremely depressed. At this time, Lin Cheng came back. He picked up the communicator and contacted the judging panel at the base. "I'm Wei Fenghua." There was a quick response from the communicator. Lin Cheng shouted, "Teacher Wei, I want to complain about that Luo guy. He has already won, but he still destroyed my mecha and took away my energy furnace. How can I fight next?" Wei Fenghua said calmly, "Then what do you think the jury should do?" Lin Cheng said without thinking, "Let Luo Yan return the energy furnace to me. Let him fix my mecha." Wei Fenghua continued to ask, "Anything else?" Lin Cheng thought for a while. He took away Li Zi's mecha. He should at least return the mecha to us, right? Wei Fenghua asked, "Is that all?" Lin Cheng hummed, "That's all." Wei Fenghua coughed twice, then said, "Student Lin Cheng, when you go to the battlefield in the future, my mecha was destroyed, and my energy furnace was taken away. Do you want us to help you get the energy furnace back, too?" Lin Cheng was stunned for a moment, then argued, "But teacher, this is not a battlefield. Isn't this a test?" Wei Fenghua said, "Yes, it is a test. But this is a combat test. Don't you understand what combat means? Then let me tell you, you're already on the battlefield from the second you leave the base." Chapter 77, A Big Blow. From the second we left the base, we were already on the battlefield. Wei Fenghua's words not only shocked Lin Cheng, but also made the students in the command center feel uneasy, including Lin Cheng. Many of them had not yet adjusted their minds. They did not think of themselves as being on the battlefield. They still thought it was just a test held outside the school. But now, Wei Fenghua made them understand clearly. since they were on the battlefield, not to mention that the mecha was destroyed and the energy furnace was taken away. Even if they died in battle, it would be nothing. He probably knew what the students were thinking. Wen Feng coughed a few more times and then said, "Of course, the teachers and I will ensure your safety to the greatest extent possible. After all, the biggest purpose of this test is to let you experience the feeling of fighting on the battlefield in advance, instead of really pushing you out to die. But you must remember that even with us, accidents may still happen. So you must be vigilant, change your mentality and thinking, and don't take this test as a joke." Lin Cheng then said, "Teacher, what should we do next? We only have one mecha left." Wen Fenghua said, "Then you have to figure it out. We can't let the jury come forward for you. What's the difference between fighting with a child and then asking an adult for help when you lose?" Lin Cheng's face heated up, and he said with a red face, "That's not what I meant." Wen Fenghua coughed and said, "The energy furnace and mecha were stolen. You can snatch them back. You can also contact Group A of the second year and refer to their practices. That's all I can say. The rest is up to you. End the communication." Lin Cheng raised his head, looked at the students around him, sighed and said, "Let's contact the second grade first. See how they deal with this situation." Second grade Group A Liu Ruohan came out of the mecha cockpit. Yesterday, Yang Lixi spent 700,000 work points to redeem the energy furnace of Orange Cat. For this, the engineering department rushed to work all night. Finally, the energy furnace was installed back and debugged. So today, their 3 mechas came out together, successfully killed the giant beast Ikwaru, and got 2000 credits. Now the score is equal to that of the first grade Group B, 400 credits less than the first grade Group A, which ranked first. Walking into the command center, Liu Ruohan heard what the classmates were discussing. Then Yang Lixi ran over and said with a beaming face, "Classmate Liu, guess what happened this morning?" He didn't keep it a secret. He said directly, "Didn't the first year Group B rob the head of Group A last night? This morning, classmate Liu not only fought back, but also robbed a giant beast from Group B. And he also took away one of their mechas and the energy furnace of another mecha." Liu Ruohan was stunned, especially when she heard that Liu Yan took away someone's energy furnace again. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch slightly. She thought, is this guy addicted to stealing energy furnaces? Then, she felt much better. Look, I'm not the only one whose energy furnace was stolen. At this time, a student came over and handed a communication device to Yang Lixi. "A first year student is looking for you." Yang Lixi took it over. Because he was interrupted while chatting with the goddess, he shouted unhappily, "Who is it? Is it senior Yang Lixi? I'm Shenyu from the first grade. I would like to ask, how did you get back the energy furnace that was stolen by Liu Yan?" Yang Lixi was happy when he heard it. It turned out that he came to ask for his advice. This made him feel very proud. He smiled and said, "It's simple. I bought it back from him for 700,000 yuan." In the command center of the first year B group, Shenyu suddenly seemed to have lost his soul and was stunned on the spot. Lin Cheng frowned and said, "How is it? What did the second year students say?" Shenyu came back to his senses. He put down the communicator. Looking at his classmates, he said, "Senior Yang said that he paid out of his own pocket and used work points to redeem the energy furnace from classmate Liu. He spent 700,000 yuan." The entire command center was as quiet as a cemetery. After a while, Lin Cheng shouted, "How much? 700,000 yuan? He won't rob it. How can I redeem the energy furnace with 700,000 yuan?" Shenyu smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid it will be more expensive to redeem the Swift." Lin Cheng hugged his head. "I can't even redeem the energy furnace, let alone the Swift. What should we do? Should we rob it back?" Shenyu looked embarrassed. "We only have one mecha left." Plop. Lizzie fell on the soft grass. She stood up and looked at Liu Yan standing on the shoulder of her mecha Swift. That figure was so unattainable. She gritted her teeth and said, "Student Liu, even if you don't return the mecha to me, you should at least send me back to the camp. You leave me here, what if I run into a giant beast?" Liu Yan ignored her. According to his understanding, he only robbed the mecha and didn't kill anyone. It was enough to be worthy of her. As for how she went back, Liu Yan didn't care. Back in the cab, Luo Yan drove the Swift straight to the high-speed railway station camp. On the way back, Luo Yan's mouth corners unconsciously rose up. I remember that in the past, when he was on the surface, every time he found food and medicine in the ruins, his mood was just like now. Fulfilled, joyful, and happy. Today, he not only avenged his loss, but also took an energy furnace and robbed a mecha. An energy furnace can be sold for 700,000 work points. What about the mecha? That must be a very fascinating set of numbers. When he thought that another work point would be deposited into his account, even though he was cold-hearted, he felt happy. He even thought, let the people in group B redeem the Swift, and then go to rob it again. Or, several times. A moment later, at the high-speed railway station camp, Li Boheng and others had received the news early in the morning, but when they saw the black and white painted Swift appear in their sight, they still felt unreal. Only a natural resonator like Luo Yan could rob a mecha in the actual combat test. Not long after, Luo Yan came out of the cab and prepared to return to the TV building to drive the white dragon back. At this time, Li Boheng came up and said, "Student Luo, what are you going to do with this energy furnace and mecha?" Luo Yan said firmly, "Sell it." Li Boheng pushed his glasses and smiled. "I guessed you would say that. But have you ever thought about it? In the second year Group A, Yang Lixi has a father who is the director of the construction bureau, and senior sister Liu Ruohan also has a wealthy family, so they can easily redeem the energy furnace. But as far as I know, the students in the first year Group B have very poor family conditions. Don't even mention the mecha. I'm afraid they can't even afford the energy furnace." Luo Yan raised his head suddenly. He had never thought about this. Suddenly, he was hit hard. Chapter 78, Dark Shadows in the Clouds. Falcon Base. Due to the ban issued by the Black Hawk Company, the exploration of the forbidden area was closed for a week. As a result, a large number of people were stranded in the base for the past 2 days. In order to prevent the residents of the base from entering the forbidden area to explore, a large number of conflicts broke out. The Black Hawk Company built a temporary coliseum in the center of the base. Every day, there are guys who are not afraid of death entering the coliseum to fight with various mutated beasts to win high rewards. In addition, the young girls in the base business has been very good in the past 2 days. The most popular one almost didn't get out of bed yesterday. I heard that she was taken to the emergency room in the middle of the night. The Black Hawk Company has tried its best to stabilize people's hearts, but the whole base is still filled with a repressive atmosphere, as if it will explode at any time. And this is only the second day. At noon that day, an outsider came to the base. He was wearing a dark red long windbreaker with a raised collar, and black leather clothes and leather pants inside. There were 17 throwing knives on his belt, and the blades of those throwing knives were indigo, obviously coated with poison. On the other side hung a pistol of astonishing caliber. On the grip of the pistol, there was a red dove pattern. The man wore a white mask on his face. There were no patterns or facial features carved on the mask. There were only holes for the nose and eyes, so that he could breathe and see. He walked towards a row of houses built with wooden sheds. In front of the house lay 2 vicious dogs with shiny hair. The 2 big dogs saw the strange visitor and smelled the unfamiliar smell, and they both roared. The man stopped. He reached his hand to his waist. Then he saw 2 blue lights flashing. They were nailed into the eyes of a big dog respectively. Within 3 seconds, the 2 vicious dogs died with foam at the mouth. Someone in the row of houses suddenly roared, "You fucking killed my guard dog. Are you going to keep it as a dog for me?" He was answered by another flying knife. It pierced directly into the forehead. The man who spoke widened his eyes. He seemed to be unable to believe it. The masked man killed himself like this. There were tables in the row of houses. It turned out to be a restaurant in the base. Seeing the boss' sudden death, the diners quickly fled. Even the waiter forgot to ask them to pay back. The man in the dark red windbreaker walked to a clean table and sat down. A lunch. A bottle of clean water. Then he took out a box and put it on the table. He waved to the waiter. The waiter walked over with trembling teeth, not daring to take the meal money. But the man pushed it over. "Hurry up, I'm hungry." The waiter took the box and opened it. It turned out that there were some anti-inflammatory drugs inside. Nowadays, the currency in circulation in the past has long become waste paper. There are many hard currencies now. Medicine is one of them, especially anti-inflammatory drugs. Although there are only 3 pills in it, it is enough to pay for the meal. After putting away the anti-inflammatory drugs, the waiter looked at the boss who died on the ground. The shock on his face gradually faded. Instead, he was replaced by inexplicable ecstasy. He immediately called 2 homeless people, gave them a steamed bun, and asked them to clean up the bodies of the boss and the 2 dogs. The 2 homeless men were very quick. In a short while, the body was thrown to an unknown place. No one came to ask about the whole process. Even the Black Hawk Company, which was supposed to maintain order in the base, ignored it. This is the surface. Order is in the fist, and truth is within the range. After the food was served, the man in the long windbreaker grabbed the waiter's hand. "Have you had any outsiders recently?" The guy nodded immediately. "Yes. 2 days ago, some people who were said to be from the dungeon came. They also killed people in the base. Black Hawk Company doesn't dare to say a word. They are so arrogant." The man in the long windbreaker asked again, "Are those people in the base now?" The guy shook his head. "Only some older people are in the base. The young ones have left and gone to the forbidden area. For this reason, Black Hawk Company has also issued a ban, prohibiting exploration this week. A whole week. This will make everyone starve." The man in the long windbreaker let go and threw him another anti-inflammatory drug. "Watch your mouth." The guy remembered the boss's corpse just now, and immediately said, "What did you say, sir? I don't understand." The man in the long windbreaker nodded with satisfaction and started eating. After lunch, he left the base. No one knew where he went. Giffer City. Second year Group B in the command center. The student who played the staff officer shouted excitedly, "Hurry, Xing, attack from the middle, and try to hold the Gudio, and don't give it a chance to escape. Wang Lei, don't move, just ambush there, just in case. Jiuying, don't just watch, you have to assist Xing, and destroy the wings of that thing." A boy shook his head and said, "Most of the giant beasts in this forbidden area are feathered insects, which is really annoying. If you are not careful, the cooked duck will fly away. Everyone, we have to work harder. Among the 4 teams, we are the last. Not to mention Class A, even the 2 first-year teams are ranked ahead of us. Yeah, Xing, you guys have to work hard. We are in the 2nd grade. Where will we put our old faces if those little brats ride on our heads?" In the ruins of a residential area, the buildings here are entangled with countless vines, and large clumps of black hair like seaweed are entangled with buildings, street lights and vehicles. A large number of corpses were entangled in the long black hair. When the long hair was blown by the wind, the corpses inside made various movements like a puppet show. Bang! Amidst the loud noise, a black shadow crashed into the tall building, crushing it to pieces. Amid the falling rocks, a giant bird like an eagle struggled to get up. The bird had brown-red feathers and exaggeratedly large wings. The most peculiar thing was that it had a long horn on its head. Now, the feathers of one wing of this giant bird called Gudio were withered and broken, and it seemed that it could no longer play its original role. The horn on its head was broken, and red blood flowed out of it. It stood up shakily, and made a cry like a baby. At this time, fireballs continued to bloom on its body, and it was hit by missiles one by one. In the explosion, the feathers of the Gudio flew and fell on fire. It screamed in pain, and with only one wing left, it fled in a panic. "Now, Wang Lei, kill it." Several staff officers shouted excitedly in the command center. Wang Lei, a sophomore who had been lying in ambush nearby, immediately controlled the mecha to rush out, trying to deal a fatal blow to the Gudio. But at this moment, a low roar sounded in the sky, as if a fighter jet was passing overhead. In the command center, the staff officers all exclaimed. On the big screen, they saw a dark shadow rolling past the city hidden behind the clouds. The clouds were churning, and something was hanging down from the clouds. It turned out to be black lines. And at the end of those black lines, there were figures hanging. P.S. I'm a little tired after 18 days of updating 10,000 times a day. I will resume normal updates tomorrow. Chapter 79. Mutation. Oh my god, what is that? Is it a person? No way. Can you adjust the picture? Quick, make the picture clearer. In the command center of the second year B group, the staff officers exclaimed repeatedly. Soon, the picture on the big screen became clear. This allowed everyone to see that above the clouds in the sky, there were ropes tangled with hair. These ropes hung one by one. There were old people and children, men, and women. Unlike the corpses that were seen everywhere in the city, those bodies were only bones. These humans hanging in the sky seemed not to be dead yet. They were plump and ruddy. The old man wore decent clothes and the children wore cute clothes. The men wore suits and the women wore dresses. Some of them had kind faces, some were handsome and sunny, some were smart and cute, and some were delicate and beautiful. These people hanging in the sky were blown by the wind and fluttered continuously, like kites that could not control their own destiny. But in the strong wind, they were still doing various actions. The elderly were reading newspapers, the children were playing football, the men were working, and the women were putting on makeup. They were just moving, but there were no newspapers in their hands, no footballs under their feet, no computers in their hands, and no makeup in front of them. From the big screen, the students seemed to be watching a stage play. But the stage was located high in the sky, which was inevitably terrifying. Soon, the black shadow behind the cloud disappeared. It seemed that it flew higher. So the ropes hanging down from the clouds, along with the humans hanging on them, also disappeared into the clouds. When nothing could be seen on the screen, the students came back to their senses and talked about it. But then someone shouted, "Where is the Gudio?" It turned out that, while they were distracted by the black shadow and the cloud, the injured Gudio had taken the opportunity to escape from the battlefield. But it was injured and could not fly, so it could only run desperately on the ground. Seeing this, Wang Lei, a second-year student, shouted, "I'll chase it." Judging from the position of his mecha, it was closest to the Gudio. Suddenly, the mecha engine roared, fully powered, and chased after the bird that was running on the ground like a rooster. At this moment, an instrument on Wang Lei's command station suddenly sounded an alarm. It turned out that he had reached the edge of the safe zone. Immediately, the voices of the staff rang out in the communication machine. "Wang Lei, don't chase it. If you go any further, you will leave the safe zone. Come back quickly." Wang Lei looked at the distance between himself and the giant bird, then gritted his teeth and said, "It doesn't matter, as long as we don't go too deep. That thing was seriously injured. If it is picked up by other teams, it would be unfair to us." On the screen, a window appeared. Jiuying, who is also a mecha master, appeared in the window. "Wang Lei, don't do anything stupid. If the beast is lost, it's lost. Are you afraid that there are no beasts in the forbidden area? Stop chasing." Wang Lei didn't even look at this classmate. "If it's lost, it's lost." "Jiuying, you say it so easily. Your family is well off. Even if you can't be a mecha master, you can go back and inherit the family business. What about me? My father had a stroke a few years ago, and my mother's health is often in trouble. I have a younger sister. If I can't be a mecha master, will our family starve to death? Besides, now, among the 4 teams, our group is at the bottom. I won't fight now. When will I fight?" With a loud shout, Wang Lei controlled the mecha and crashed into a park. He crossed the safe zone. At this time, when Fenghua's voice sounded in the command desk, classmate Wang Lei stopped the action immediately before Wei Fenghua finished speaking. Wang Lei cut off the communication. "Insist on doing it on your own." After chasing out of the park, the Gudio in front seemed to have no strength. It stopped. Seeing this, Wang Lei was overjoyed. The mecha he was driving drew out a long knife, leaped up suddenly, and fell heavily. He stepped on the head of the Gudio with one foot and turned the long knife upside down, with the tip of the knife facing down. He stabbed it. He cut open its belly with one knife. But the Gudio did not die. On the contrary, it struggled desperately. It used the broken horn on its head to hit Wang Lei's mecha hard. The mecha was hit and sparks flew. Under the effect of the empathy system, Wang Lei only felt uncomfortable in his chest. This was because the combat uniform had the effect of reducing pain perception. Otherwise, Wang Lei wondered if he would faint from the pain. He roared. The control mecha stretched out his hand to pinch the neck of the Gudio, drew out the long knife, and swept it violently. A cold light swept out. Where the cold light passed, the head and neck of the Gudio were completely separated. The mecha stood up and raised the giant bad's head with wide eyes high, as if to prove something to the world. Unfortunately, there were no spectators here. At this time, the energy spectrum of the Gudao disappeared in the giant beast radar in the cab. I did it. Wang Lei closed his eyes, and his smile gradually expanded. I did it. I killed the beast. He laughed loudly. He was in a good mood, but he didn't notice that the forbidden area had quietly become quiet. Even the roars of the beasts that sounded from time to time suddenly disappeared. Then, it was still noon. The light in the forbidden area quickly dimmed. This made the outlines of all things blurred and ambiguous, but it also highlighted the richness of the shadows. In the cab, Wang Lei finally adjusted his mood and prepared to go back with the head of the Gudao. Suddenly, he saw shadows deep in the forbidden area in the panoramic window. It seemed that a group of people were walking this way. Wang Lei looked at the radar, but no life signs were found in the radar. His scalp exploded. Don't think about it. Decisively drive the mecha towards the safe zone. In the panoramic window, the light around quickly dimmed. It seemed that the night had come early. Wang Lei couldn't help but look at the time on the command desk with some suspicion. The time showed that there were still 10 minutes until 1300 hours in the afternoon. At this moment, the mecha suddenly shook, staggered, and almost fell. Wang Lei looked down. There was a ball of black hair wrapped around the right foot of the mecha. It must have been tripped by this thing just now. At this moment, the ball of black hair seemed to have its own life and consciousness. Suddenly it squirmed and wrapped around the feet of the mecha like a snake. Wang Lei was about to cut off the hair with a long knife. Suddenly he found that his arm was difficult to move. He turned his head and looked. There were dozens of strands of long black hair entangled on the mecha's arms. They swept in from nearby trees, from the lamp posts next to them, from the windows of buildings, and from various places, entangling the mecha. Wang Lei's heart was pounding, and he didn't care about much anymore. He threw away the Gudao's head, picked up the rifle, and shot at the clumps of hair entangled in his arms. After just a few shots, Wang Lei felt his neck tighten. It turned out that there were also a few clumps of black hair wrapped around the neck of the mecha. At the same time, the hair spread out in all directions, and strands of hair continued to drill into the gaps in the mecha, gradually penetrating deeper into the interior of the mecha. Chapter 80 Cruelty. Warning. Warning. The machine has encountered an unknown intrusion. Please eliminate it in time. The machine has encountered an unknown intrusion. Please eliminate it in time. In the cab, the alarm sounded loudly. Wang Lei hurriedly activated the rejection system. Immediately, bursts of super high temperature gas erupted from the inside of the machine, blowing out the hair that had penetrated into the gaps in the mecha, and at the same time making them curl and burn. Wang Lei just breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, the lights in the cab flickered, and between the alternation of light and darkness, he vaguely saw a shadowy area under the mecha. Countless figures came from nowhere. They were densely packed, and shoulder to shoulder, passing by the feet of the mecha. At this moment, due to the dim environment, Wang Lei has turned on the external lights of the mecha. Looking out from the panoramic window, with the help of the light, he can see those figures clearly. They seem to be the original residents of the city. These figures are dressed in a variety of clothes, and they look like white-collar workers, students, workers, and children. But without exception, they are all very blurry, as if they are surrounded by an invisible fog. At this time, they all stopped, no longer moving forward. Then in the next moment, all these figures looked towards the mecha. Through the panoramic window, their eyes met Wang Lei. Wang Lei suddenly felt a chill on his back. A chill instantly jumped from his heels to the back of his head. All the hairs on his body stood up at once. What is this? Wang Lei instinctively wanted to leave, but the mecha did not respond to his action. At this time, the empathy system sounded an alarm. An abnormal signal is detected logging in. An abnormal signal is detected logging in. Abnormal signal? Question mark? Wang Lei looked at the system, and the screen showed that another unknown signal was occupying system resources. It looked like it was going to squeeze Wang Lei's brainwave signal offline. Wang Lei's mind was blank. In school, the teachers had never mentioned this situation. He had no idea how to deal with it. Fortunately, Wang Lei remembered that the teacher also said that if the empathy system failed, the empathy program could be used. He immediately reached out to start the program. But at this time, his hand stopped in midair. It was on his wrist. There was a dark hand. It tightly grasped him. Wang Lei screamed. He turned his head and saw a figure beside him. He wore a Mecha Division combat uniform and a helmet. The figure was blurry, as if shrouded in mist. When Wang Lei looked at it, it also looked at Wang Lei. In the helmet, Wang Lei saw a familiar face. His face. The lights in the cab were still flickering. Wang Lei didn't notice. His shadow had disappeared without a trace. High-speed rail station. In the waiting hall, Zheng Shan saw from a distance that Luo Yan was sitting alone in a corner. The sunlight fell on him, dragging a lonely shadow on the ground. He held a piece of bread in his hand, but he didn't take a bite. Luo Yan, who had no appetite, had not been seen by Zheng Shan yet. He was about to go over. Suddenly he was pulled back. Turning back, it turned out to be Li Bohang. Li Bohang shook his head and smiled, saying, "It's best not to disturb him now. He just suffered a great blow." Zheng Shan was stunned for a moment. He will also suffer a blow? What blow? I just told him a cruel reality. Li Bohang pushed his glasses on his nose. The mecha and energy furnace he robbed this morning. Group B probably doesn't have the money to redeem them. Zheng Shan. Just then, in the camp that served as the command center, a student ran out and shouted, "Luo Yan, Li Bohang, Zheng Shan. Coming quickly, the jury has something important to announce." The student shouted several times. Luo Yan turned around. A moment later, on the big screen of the command center, Weni Fenghua said solemnly, "Just now, we lost contact with Wang Lei from Group B of the second year. This is the image we took with the drone. You can take a look." The picture changed. A scene in the city appeared. In that scene, the strange black long hair was growing wildly from the depths of the city. They poured out in overwhelming numbers, submerging tall buildings, roads, streetlights, cars, and trees. Among them, the mecha driven by Wang Lei was first entangled by some hair, and then struggled to resist. But in the end, the mecha was entangled with the black hair inch by inch, and was dragged away by the black hair. Dragged into the depths of the city. The playback ended. The entire command center was silent. The students still couldn't understand why Wang Lei's mecha was pulled away by those strange hairs. Luo Yan's eyes moved, and he thought of something, but didn't speak. Li Bohang sighed softly. Senior Wang Lei has left the safe zone. Weni Fenghua's image reappeared. Yes, Wang Lei ignored the advice and left the safe zone. He encountered a strange incident outside the safe zone. Preliminary suspicion is that this is related to the activities of Dang Hu, but as before, we have no substantial evidence. But one thing is certain. Once you cross the safe zone, you may encounter unpredictable dangers. Wang Lei is an example. I hope everyone will take this as a warning. The above is the important information that the jury wants to inform you. The communication ended. There was a sigh in the command center. Although almost no one here knew Wang Lei, but a fresh life suddenly disappeared. It still makes people sigh. Zheng Shan frowned and said, "Teacher, aren't you going to organize a rescue?" Luo Yan did not respond to this question, and walked out of the tent with his eyes downcast. Li Bohang sighed and said, "Now it's just the loss of a mecha and the death of a student. If a rescue is organized, there may be many casualties. Although it's cruel to say this, the fact is that senior Wang Lei is not worth rescuing." Zheng Shan was shocked. This simple young man, who had never experienced the cruelty of disasters, still holds the value of life is priceless. Now, Li Bohang's words no rescue value made him deeply feel the cruelty of the surface. At this time, when they were about to leave the command center, the communicator rang. "Is Luo Yan here? We want to talk to him." A moment later, a communicator was handed to Luo Yan. Luo Yan raised his head and looked at Li Bohang. "It's from Group B of the first year. I think they want to discuss redeeming the mecha and energy furnace with you." Hearing this, Luo Yan's eyes lit up at first, and then he became a little bored. Finally, he said to the intercom, "Energy furnace 700,000, mecha 5 million. Take them all away, 5.5 million. Without waiting for the other party to respond, he returned the communicator to Li Bohang. Then he asked seriously, "Which students in the other three groups have rich families?" When Luo Yan said this, Far away in the camp of Group A of the second year, Yang Lixi shuddered for no reason. Chapter 81 Paying for Innocence. First year Group B. Energy furnace 700,000. Mecha 5 million. 5.5 million for the package. The muscles at the corners of Lin Cheng's mouth twitched. This is too much. It's all because of that second year guy named Yang. It's a precedent. Now, where can we get millions of work points to redeem the energy furnace and mecha? Lizzie, who had returned, was in low spirits. The excitement of snatching the heads of Group A before was gone. She had imagined that there would be revenge. But she didn't expect the revenge to come so quickly and so fiercely. Not only did her team's hunting beasts get intercepted and killed by Luo Yan, he also snatched Lin Cheng's energy furnace and her own mecha. This is a huge loss. Shen Yu, who looked ordinary, smiled bitterly and said, how about we ask Luo to meet him? We can use 2,000 credits to buy what he has. I have asked the teacher about the credits. The teacher said that the credits are with the jury and are only used as a consideration for grades. As for the use of the credits, we can allocate them ourselves, as long as the whole team has no objection. Lin Cheng turned to look at the other students. What do you think? A boy sighed and said, if there is only Shen Yu's mecha, we basically won't be able to do anything next. If we can use 2,000 credits to exchange 4-year energy furnace and Swift, I think it's worth it. Other students also agreed. At this time, Lizzie sighed and said, you'd better be mentally prepared. Luo Yan gives me the feeling that he is not so easy to get along with. His worldview and values are different from ours. So, it's best not to be too idealistic. Shen Yu smiled bitterly and said, anyway, let's contact Group A first. A moment later, Li Boheng found Luo Yan. Group B wants to talk to you. They plan to use their credits to buy the things you have. Luo Yan was writing down a few names in his notebook. They were Liu Ruohan, Yang Like, and Zai Yun. Li Boheng said that among the other 3 teams, only these 3 students had wealthy families. The others were all average. Now, when he heard that Group B was going to use their credits to buy things, Luo Yan became a little interested. Although credits are not work points, they can be exchanged for a lot of things in school. They are considered to be relatively valuable things. He stood up. Time. Place. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. In a coffee shop occupied by weeds. When Luo Yan and Zheng Shan walked in, they saw 2 people from Group B, Shen Yu and Lizzie. On the Group B side, Shen Yu felt that Lin Cheng was too impulsive and might do something bad, so he didn't let him come. As for Lizzie, she was defeated by Luo Yan. Bringing her along would itself mean showing weakness. Seeing Luo Yan coming, Shen Yu smiled and said, good afternoon, classmate Luo. I didn't give him a chance to finish. Luo Yan said directly, 2,000 credits in exchange for an energy furnace and her full set of combat uniforms. He pointed at Lizzie. Luo Yan had thought about it. When he came, 2,000 credits are equivalent to 400,000 work points at most. It is impossible for Group B to buy back the energy furnace and the mecha. Luo Yan is not even willing to give up the energy furnace. However, if Lizzie's combat uniform is added, it can barely make up for this number. The empathy requirements of primary mechs are very low. Unless you are very unlucky, you can basically achieve empathy and drive mechs. That's why the school arranged 12 primary mechs for students to compete, and a random draw was used. Because no matter who wins, empathy can basically be achieved. However, to achieve empathy, a combat suit is needed. The neuron line must be connected to the drive on the combat suit to activate the empathy system. In addition, each mecha will record the driver's brain waves. Only through the device on the combat suit helmet can the previous records be formatted, and the brain waves can be re-recorded. Luo Yan wanted Lizzie's full set of combat uniforms. This was to erase the previous brainwave records. Let someone in his team drive the Swift. This would not only increase the combat power of Group A, but also make it easier for Luo Yan to do what he was going to do next. Hearing that Luo Yan wanted a full set of combat uniforms, Shen Yu probably guessed his thoughts. He frowned and said, Student Luo, after all, we have known each other for a while. Can't we have a discussion? There is a saying that you should leave a way out for everything, so that we can meet again in the future. 2,000 credits in exchange for an energy furnace and a mecha is already our biggest concession. Wait a minute. Don't leave. Luo Yan didn't want to talk nonsense with him at all. Either meet his request or meet on the battlefield. What is leaving a way out for everything? It might have worked in the past, but it's a joke now. You leave a way out for others. In the future, they will have the chance to stab you back. He has experienced this kind of thing. He doesn't want to experience it again. Every scar on his body. He paid for his naivety. Lizzie said decisively, we promise you 2,000 credits in exchange for an energy furnace and a full set of combat uniforms. Shen Yu looked at the classmate next to him in astonishment. Lizzie pushed his thick glasses and said, believe me, if you don't agree now, if he walks out of this door, we will only have one mecha to use next. Now, at least two. Luo Yan turned around, a little surprised. This girl understands herself. The matter was settled. Luo Yan got another 2,000 credits. But this is his private matter. Therefore, it will not be counted in the assessment results. Hand in a full set of combat uniforms. Take back the energy furnace. Shen Yu and the others returned to the camp. But they saw guests coming to the camp. Sophomores Jiuying and Xing Feng. We want to form an alliance with you. In the command center, Jiuying got straight to the point and stated his purpose. Another sophomore also said, you should know that classmate Wang Lei met with misfortune. We are very sorry, but the test must continue. We have also heard about your story. You now have 2 mechas left. In this way, our 2 teams are the weakest among the 4 teams. So, why don't we join forces? As long as we kill the behemoth, no matter who decapitates it, our 2 teams will share it equally. Besides, if we join forces, we will have 4 mechas. This way, other teams will have to think about it when they want to pay attention to us. Jiuying also said, also, if we have 4 mechas, hunting behemoths will definitely be more efficient. What do you think? Lin Cheng nodded and said, I think there is no problem. What do you think? Shen Yu said cautiously, okay, but in terms of credit allocation, I think we should consult the teacher first. If they agree, we will join forces. He did this for 2 purposes. One is to verify the feasibility of credit allocation with the judging committee. The other is to indirectly let the judges be a witness. Don't let any disputes arise over credit allocation. Chapter 82 Yang Lekei's pocket. It was evening. The light of the setting sun fell down, painting everything golden. Buildings, overpasses, roads, cars, trees. While being dyed golden, they also cast long shadows. If it weren't for those weird hairs entangled in streetlights, hanging from windows, and drowning the road surface, the current scene would be very pleasing to the eye. In the cab, Du Heng looked at Luo Yan standing next to him. The mecha that Du Heng was driving now was the Swift that Luo Yan had snatched from Group B after Li Zi's full set of combat uniforms were delivered, and at the recommendation of Li Boheng, this mecha was finally driven by Du Heng, who had a good performance in the driving simulation class. After cleaning Li Zi's brainwave records and replacing them with Du Heng's, Luo Yan asked Du Heng to drive the Swift to give him a ride. Headed to the battlefield near Group A of the second year. Du Heng didn't know what Luo Yan wanted to do, but he didn't ask. Now Luo Yan is a celebrity in the team. He robbed the giant beasts and mechas, and he robbed 2 energy furnaces alone. He even robbed the Swift that he was driving now. So he did whatever Luo Yan asked him to do. Soon, in the panoramic window, he could see the flames of explosions between the buildings in the distance, and vaguely heard the sound coming from that direction. The second year Group A was fighting in that direction. It's okay here. Luo Yan continued, you hide first, and when they go back, we'll follow them. Du Heng suddenly realized, Brother Yan, are you going to raid their lair? But it didn't make sense. To raid the second year's lair, several mechas should be dispatched at the same time. Luo Yan didn't answer. After waiting for a while, in the panoramic window, there were already 3 mechas returning in the distance. Turn on the radar shielding system. Luo Yan gave instructions. Du Heng responded, I turned it on when we set out. Luo Yan nodded. Although this was Du Heng's first time driving a mecha, he did a good job. It can be seen that he took the driving class seriously. The foundation is quite solid. Luo Yan followed and said, follow. Don't follow too closely, just don't lose it. Du Heng nodded, thinking it was not a big problem. Swift is a light machine with flexible movements. In addition, it is small, which is convenient for concealment and stealth. Sure enough, Du Heng drove the mecha to track the second year camp without being noticed. Okay, we will separate here. When you receive my signal, you return to the camp immediately. Remember to take a detour and don't let anyone follow you. Luo Yan gave an order and opened the cabin door without waiting for Du Heng to respond. Du Heng controlled the mecha, put Luo Yan in his palm, and sent him to the ground. As soon as he got off the ground, Luo Yan immediately rushed to the second year camp. He did not forget to open the ghost wheel to gather the breath of his whole body. At the same time, he opened the barrier breaking eye to observe the surroundings. Avoid encountering giant beasts or parasites. Just like that, he successfully came to the second year camp. Hiding in a big tree without strange hair, he looked towards the second year camp. The mechs of the second grade have returned to the camp. The mechs knelt on one knee. This was to avoid being too conspicuous and being discovered by the giant beast. It was also convenient for the maintenance team to inspect and maintain. Luo Yan locked onto the bright yellow painted orange cat. In the field of vision provided by the barrier breaking eye, he clearly saw that the driver of the orange cat had left his seat in the cab. This obviously had disconnected the empathy system and was about to leave. Luo Yan immediately closed his eyes and began to empathize with the orange cat mecha. Practice makes perfect. Now, Luo Yan quickly found the feeling. He vaguely heard the thumping of his heartbeat. He felt a rhythm like a heartbeat. Then his whole body shook. He opened his eyes. He saw a mountain field quickly sliding away in front of him. He was running. The breeze accompanied him. He was agile, crouching from time to time, and then bursting. The whole person swept out like a rocket. When he climbed over a mountain, he saw a large lake below. There was a huge white snake entwined in the center of the lake. He fell down quickly. At the same time, he put his hands behind his waist and brought out two sharp short swords. The giant snake in the center of the lake felt it, raised its head, and hissed. In the two huge pupils of the giant snake, a figure was reflected. It was a woman. Black hair like clouds, bright features. Luo Yan was shocked. Is this himself? In an instant, the figure of the woman and the giant snake intertwined. The two strokes intertwined. Slashed. A snake head was smashed to pieces. The scene ended here. Luo Yan came back to his senses. He had heard the exclamation of the second graders in the camp. What's going on? The empathy system of the orange cat has been logged in by another signal. Student Liu, come out quickly. But at this time, the orange cat suddenly turned around, and his kneeling position changed to a crouching position. Suddenly, he broke out. With a kick of his legs, the mecha turned into an orange light and shadow. In an instant, he left the camp. Looking at the mecha that suddenly rushed out of the camp, Yang Lixi dropped the drink he was about to give to Liu Ruohan. Other students exclaimed, that's not what Liu usually does. But does the orange cat have such explosive power? Yang Lixi came back to his senses. He reached out and grabbed a classmate and said, did you just say that the orange cat's apostrophe empathy system was logged in by other signals? The classmate nodded and showed the tablet in his hand. It was indeed displayed on it. This. Yang Lixi's mouth twitched. It's over. It must be classmate Luo. He is a natural empathizer. He can access the empathy system without the help of combat uniforms. Yang Lixi subconsciously touched his pocket. It cost 700,000 to redeem the energy furnace last time. How much does that mecha cost? At this time, the other two mecha masters of Group A ran out and ran towards the mecha. Prepare to drive the mecha to rescue. On the other side, while controlling the orange cat to rush out of the base, Luo Yan used the communicator to give Du Heng a retreat order. Then he jumped down from the tree. Just then, the orange cat passed by him. He reached out and grabbed Luo Yan in his palm and held his 5 fingers to prevent Luo Yan from falling out. Luo Yan lay on the palm of the mecha. With the help of empathy, he continued to control the mecha. The orange cat ran in the forbidden area and flexibly shuttled between buildings. The speed and flexibility of the movements completely surpassed when Liu Ruohan was driving. In the cab, Liu Ruohan huddled in the corner and used the small space to fix herself. She looked through the panoramic window and saw that the orange cat had moved away from the camp. It stopped by a dried up canal. Liu Ruohan quickly got up and rushed to the command desk. She wanted to restart the empathy system and force the intrusion signal to go offline. But at this time, she saw the mecha raise its hand and put it on the shoulder of the body. The hand opened its 5 fingers, and Luo Yan jumped onto the mecha's shoulder. Obviously, Luo Yan was going to enter the cockpit. Liu Ruohan turned around and looked at the cockpit door. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 83, Disobeying the Prohibition. Luo Yan was standing in front of the hatch of the cab. Through the braking barrier's eye, he saw Liu Ruohan waiting in the door. Luo Yan stretched out his hand and pressed on the hilt of the splitting star. Because he saw Liu Ruohan reaching for the pistol on his waist. But Liu Ruohan quickly took his hand away and just took a fighting posture. Luo Yan then released his hand that had been on the hilt of the splitting star and manually opened the hatch. At the moment the hatch opened, he had already activated viewing mountains and seas, allowing himself to emit a bright yellow light and condense into a blurred virtual shadow of overlapping mountains. With a hint of a majestic aura, Luo Yan savagely rushed into the cab. What greeted him was a punch from Liu Ruohan that was calculated at a good angle and hit him in the ribs. Liu Ruohan originally intended to use this punch to force Luo Yan out, but Luo Yan seemed not to see it. He ignored it. His right hand stretched forward and grabbed Liu Ruohan's throat extremely brutally. Liu Ruohan lived in the underground city and had never experienced the cruel surface. How could she imagine that Luo Yan's fighting style would be so violent? She couldn't help but panic. She subconsciously dodged Luo Yan's grab. Then, the two fought in the cab for more than a dozen rounds. Luo Yan's attack was violent and rough, without any mercy. Liu Ruohan was agile and had amazing balance ability and could often make incredible moves. In a short moment, the two of them advanced and retreated, fighting at lightning speed. Many times, Luo Yan relied on his stronger physical fitness to withstand Liu Ruohan's attack. At the same time, he seized the opportunity to attack fiercely. He pushed Liu Ruohan towards the cabin door little by little. During the battle, Luo Yan shouted loudly. He punched Liu Ruohan in the chest. He didn't care about anything. Liu Ruohan's pretty face was hot. It was the first time that she was aggressively acted by a person of the opposite sex. He recalled the first time they fought before. The scene of the mecha she was driving being held tightly by the white dragon made her feel complicated. Distracted, she did not notice Luo Yan's quiet kick. When she reacted, Luo Yan changed his kick to a kick, hitting Liu Ruohan's lower abdomen. The power suddenly gushed out, kicking Liu Ruohan backwards and flying out of the cockpit. Liu Ruohan fell directly from the mecha. She couldn't help but screamed, but halfway through the scream, she felt something hit her from behind. When she came to her senses, she found that the mecha had caught her with its hands. Liu Ruohan raised her head and saw Luo Yan standing at the hatch, saying lightly, "It's even." In addition, the mecha is 5 million. Liu Ruohan was stunned for a moment, and then she reacted. Luo Yan was doing this to retaliate against her last provocation. Then, he snatched the mecha away and wanted 5 million to redeem it. Liu Ruohan's heart was suddenly in a mess, and she was a little confused. This time Luo Yan came here specifically for revenge. Or is revenge just an excuse, and the real purpose is to rob money? The hatch closed. Luo Yan sat in the driver's seat, fastened his seatbelt. Then he saw that 2 second-year mechs had arrived. So he put Liu Ruohan on the ground. This was a heavyweight client related to 5 million work points. Luo Yan naturally didn't want her to get into trouble. So he left when he saw the second-year student coming. After putting Liu Ruohan down, the orange cat turned around and walked away, flexibly shuttling between the buildings, and soon disappeared in the light of the setting sun. Hearing the sound of the mecha running and feeling the vibration of the ground, Liu Ruohan suddenly felt that Luo Yan was not so unkind. At least, he waited until his companions came to pick him up before putting him down. Otherwise, before his companions arrived, she would be alone and might be targeted by giant beasts or swarms of parasites. Thinking of this, her mood improved a little. High-speed rail station camp. When Li Boheng and others saw the orange cat enter the camp, everyone was dumbfounded. This morning, Luo Yan just grabbed a Swift. In the evening, he grabbed the orange cat as well. 5 mechas were lined up in a row. This scene was as spectacular as it could be. In the cab, Luo Yan had just gotten off the mecha. Li Boheng came over with a communicator. Senior Yang Lixi is looking for you. Luo Yan nodded and took it. In the communicator, Yang Lixi said in a tearful voice, "Student Luo, why are you here to steal things again? Can you stop focusing on our group? Look at the other 2 groups, especially the second year group B. You haven't done anything to them yet. How about changing the target?" Luo Yan didn't say anything. Yang Lixi sighed and said, "Look, we have dealt with each other before. Can it be cheaper this time? 5 million is really too much." Luo Yan finally spoke. 4.8 million. Can it be less? Mr. Luo? Mr. Luo? Okay, 4.8 million. But it's not a small amount. You have to give us some time. I'll call you tomorrow morning. Luo Yan nodded, same as last time. I'll return the mecha to you after the money is in the account. Ending the communication. Luo Yan returned the communication device to Li Boheng. The latter gave him a thumbs up. Then he said, "We found the traces of another giant beast. Let's have a meeting after dinner?" Luo Yan nodded. After all, actual combat testing is the real business. The sun finally went down. In the camp of the high-speed railway station, lights were lit up one by one. But the number of lights is limited. If you are not close, it is difficult to see the lights of the camp. However, in the amusement park on the northwest side, a man standing on the Ferris wheel. He could see the lights of the camp clearly. The man was wearing a dark red trench coat with black leather jacket and pants underneath. He was wearing a white mask. He stood on a cabin of the Ferris wheel like a ghost, raised a telescope, and observed the camp. Soon, Luo Yan appeared in the telescope. The man put down the telescope and took out a photo. In the photo, there was a young man with black hair and red eyes. It was Luo Yan. The next day, when Luo Yan's student card had an additional 4.8 million work points, he crossed out Liu Ruohan's name on the notebook. Next, he focused on the test. 3 days passed quickly. During these days, the 4 teams made some gains in the forbidden area. At present, Group A of the first year, where Luo Yan was located, was temporarily in the lead. But Liu Ruohan's team was chasing very closely. They could be overtaken at any time. And since Luo Yan took away 5.5 million work points, Liu Ruohan's team did not try to retaliate. Although they were rich, they could not resist Luo Yan's robbery. If Luo Yan had to rob again or twice, they couldn't afford the ransom. So they simply focused their energy on testing. As for the 2 teams of Linqing and Jiuying, the situation really improved after they joined forces. 4 mechas acted at the same time and succeeded repeatedly. But because the credits for killing the behemoth had to be divided equally between the 2 teams, their ranking was still behind. Another day passed. Linqing drove the mecha and returned to the camp with his companions. Suddenly, his radar flashed. It turned out that the scan had detected an unregistered life reaction. Linqing immediately walked in the direction of the life reaction. A moment later, he found several figures in a building. "Who is in there? Come out immediately, or I will shoot." Linqing used the external speaker function of the mecha to let his voice echo in the building. "Don't shoot. We'll come out right away." Figures soon appeared in several windows in the building. They were not classmates from the academy. They were residents of the Falcon base. They finally couldn't help it, disobeyed the ban, and sneaked into the forbidden area to explore. Chapter 84. Arrival suddenly. Linqing magnified the image in the panoramic window on a light screen. He could clearly see the people who appeared in the window. There were tattooed mercenaries, laborers responsible for carrying heavy objects, and people wearing glasses who looked like guides or experts in some field. These people of all kinds formed an exploration team. This was also the most basic structure of every team that entered the forbidden area for exploration at every surface base. Xing said through the mech's external speaker function. Black Hawk Company has banned exploration. How can you still knowingly violate it? A mercenary with a scorpion tattoo on his arm shouted. 5 days. We haven't worked for 5 days. Young master, you are not from the surface. You don't understand what 5 days of no work means to us. We have wives and children to support. Besides, we are under the protection of the base and have to pay living expenses every month. But the base did not exempt our living expenses just because we stopped working. Besides, everything we eat, wear, and use costs money. On the one hand, they don't let us work. On the other hand, they charge all kinds of fees. Young master, we really can't stand it anymore. If we don't come in and take risks, we will all starve to death. Xing was a little confused. Although his family was very ordinary, living in the underground city, as long as they were willing to work, they basically would not have trouble making ends meet. He felt very unfamiliar with what the mercenary said, and didn't know where to start. Finally, he could only say, we are fighting here, and you are exploring here. It will be very dangerous. You go, leave here quickly. The mercenary nodded. Okay, we will leave now. Xing did not return to the camp immediately. He stayed there to prevent the giant beast from suddenly appearing. After these explorers left, Xing returned to the base and informed the jury of the matter. In the Falcon base, as soon as Wei Fenghua got the news, he immediately contacted the Black Hawk Company. Soon the Black Hawk Company responded. Director Wei, I'm sorry to hear such news. But in this matter, our company can do very limited. We can't restrict the actions of the residents of the base. Of course, if they violated the ban first, then what happens to them in the forbidden area is their own business. Your school does not have to be responsible for this. After listening to Gao Yui's reply from the Black Hawk Company, Wei Fenghua could only inform the students to continue the test, and the school had no obligation to protect those who were going to die. But neither Wei Fenghua nor Xing knew. In the building where the explorers stayed before, in some hidden corners, they seemed to have left a lot of things. There were some black bottles with silver grey bad patterns on them. This bird had narrow and pointed wings and a short and wide beak, which was exactly the characteristics of a falcon. The lids of those black bottles seemed to be not screwed on properly, and they were emitting gas with a hissing sound. The gas quickly dissipated into the air and disappeared. The sun went down. In the camp. After dinner, Xing strolled in the camp. He exhaled and rubbed his hands, feeling that the forbidden area seemed to be colder tonight than in the past few days. Senior Jiuying contacted us just now. Shen Yu's voice came from behind. Xing turned around, and the moonlight shone on his slightly hideous face. Shen Yu continued, Senior Jiuying meant that there are only 2 days left in the test. No matter how many lower level behemoths we hunt, we can't catch up with the scores of the other 2 teams. He thinks we should start with the mid-level behemoths. A mid-level behemoth can earn 2000 credits. Killing one is equivalent to killing 2 lower level ones. Moreover, although lower level behemoths are the most numerous in a forbidden area, they are not so numerous that they can be used to score points. In the past few days, Xing and Jiuying's 2 teams have cooperated. In order to improve their rankings as quickly as possible, they have specifically picked lower level behemoths that are easy to kill. However, this is the edge of the forbidden area. There are not many behemoths, even lower level ones. After a few days, they have basically killed them all. If they want to kill lower level ones again, I'm afraid they will have to cross the safe zone to find them. Xing thought about it and nodded. Okay, haven't we found the trace of a Kwaru? Tomorrow. Before he finished speaking, an alarm suddenly sounded in the camp. Then, at the command center, a staff officer ran out in a hurry and shouted, Xing, Shen Yu. Something happened. There are giant beasts. There are giant beasts coming towards us. A feathered insect has already triggered our air network alarm. But the radar shows that there are at least 7 giant beasts approaching us. Xing was stunned. How could there be so many giant beasts? Could they have run out from the depths of the forbidden area? He then shouted, everyone evacuate. Everyone evacuate. Although their camp was well defended, how could they defend against 8 giant beasts? While he was shouting, He and Shenyu ran towards the mecha. Soon, Lin Cheng entered the mecha's cockpit and quickly started various instruments to activate the mecha. Then he turned on the giant beast radar. Immediately, the radar showed that 8 spectral signals were coming towards their camp. 5 of the signals were blue, and the remaining 3 were orange. 5 lower level, 3 middle level. Lin Cheng took a breath. At this moment, a section of road far from the camp suddenly exploded with flames. As the large ball of flames rose up, the outline of a goat was reflected. It was a 9-tailed sheep. More flames rose, and the sound of explosions broke the silence of the night. The anti-monster mines exploded with astonishing momentum, and from the continuous explosions, it was clear that a monster had entered the minefield. At the same time, the high-altitude warning network was still on alert. A strong whistle had already sounded in the sky. In the panoramic window, Lin Cheng saw a flying beast that looked like a bird, but had female body features rushing towards this side. It was the intermediate monster Guhuro bird that they had snatched and killed from the hands of the first year Group A before. That day, it took the 3 mecha bosses of Luo Yan and others to fight for a Guhuro bird. Now there are only 2 mechas in the camp of the first year Group B. How can they deal with so many monsters? Run. Run. Lin Cheng shouted, I'll cover you. Go quickly. While driving the mecha to clear the way for his classmates, Shenyu contacted the judging panel and reported the situation here. The incident happened suddenly. Group B had no time to clean up and could only abandon a large amount of supplies. Cars drove out of the camp one after another. Led by Shenyu's mecha, they rushed into the vast night. Behind them, the dark red mecha driven by Lin Cheng had already raised his rifle and opened fire. Lin Cheng was not a brave man. He just used the firepower of the mecha to contain and cover. He fought and retreated. He hoped to lead the giant beast to other directions and prevent it from attacking the team's convoy. Chapter 85, Big Speech. When the camp of Group B was attacked in the first year, Luo Yan was practicing. The UN force in the space was continuously poured into his body, and then under the purification of the spark agent, the amount of UN force was reduced a lot, and it also became much purer. These pure UN forces were consciously controlled by Luo Yan and continuously injected into the radius of the forearm. The UN force entered every cell, changing Luo Yan's physique from the source, and tempering the thicker bones in this arm bone. At this moment, Luo Yan's spirit and attention were completely focused on the inside of the body. As the radius was tempered, he seemed to hear faint roars in the bones. The structure and properties of the bones were undergoing subtle changes. Under the impact of the UN force, the cells were constantly dividing and forming new tissues, which slightly increased the weight of this radius. And the strength and hardness of the bones were significantly improved. The texture of the mountain rock began to appear on the bone, with a bit of the meaning of the towering mountains. When the radius was tempered, Luo Yan's right hand had been fully tempered. His right hand was far superior to other parts in both strength and power. At this time, the medicinal properties of the Starfire agent had not been completely exhausted. In line with the virtue of frugality, Luo Yan wanted to continue practicing. Suddenly, he was frightened and felt that danger was approaching. Luo Yan decisively ended his practice. He opened his eyes, picked up the star-splitting agent, and walked out of the tent. In the waiting hall of the high-speed rail station, there was a cry of surprise in the tent of the command center. Luo Yan walked over Loki, got into the tent, and saw what the students were discussing. Zheng Shan happened to see him, and ran over immediately. Luo, something happened in Group B of the first year. Luo Yan glanced at him. Zheng Shan, who already knew Luo Yan, said without waiting for Luo Yan to ask, just now the judges informed us that the camp of Group B was attacked by giant beasts. At least 8 giant beasts attacked their camp. Fortunately, they set up high altitude warning nets and ground minefields, so they were able to evacuate in time. But the teacher said that the giant beasts rarely act together, and there may be something abnormal in the forbidden area. The judges asked our other teams to temporarily stop the test. A teacher has already come to the forbidden area. Wait until we figure out what happened, and then continue the test. If there is danger, evacuate first, and don't worry about the test. Luo Yan nodded. Then a series of footsteps came. A boy ran over and said, Group B, the people of Group B are coming to our side. hoping to hide in our camp. Luo Yan frowned. A trace of displeasure flashed through his heart. It's no problem for Group B to come here to take shelter temporarily. Luo Yan was just afraid that they would provoke the giant beasts as well. Li Boheng immediately asked, where are the giant beasts? Did they follow them? The male student shook his head. No, I heard that lynching led the group of giant beasts away. This guy is very reliable at critical moments. Luo Yang nodded slightly. The camp was attacked, and at this time, he dared to lead the giant beasts away alone. This Len is a real man. Li Boheng glanced at Luo Yan, who nodded slightly, and he said, turn off the sensor of the thunder array and let them in first. The boy picked up the communicator and contacted the students in charge of vigilance outside, asking them to turn off the sensor of the thunder array and let Group B in. Holding the sword, Luo Yan came to the window of the hall and saw a little light on in the thick night outside. Those were the lights of the Group B team. On this side of the camp, Du Heng drove the Swift and Zheng Shan drove the King Kong. The two mechs walked to the entrance of the high-speed railway station and were responsible for vigilance. In the dark night, the lights flickered. The outline of a mecha was outlined in the darkness. That was the mecha driven by Shen Yu. The mecha was carrying a rifle and walking beside the convoy. After escorting the convoy into the high-speed rail station, the mecha half knelt on the ground and Shen Yu walked out of the cab. A moment later, the students of Group B of the first year walked into the waiting hall of the high-speed rail station. After days of cleaning, the hall became spacious and bright. The students of Group B were exhausted all the way. In the dark night, they didn't know where to escape. Fortunately, halfway, Shen Yu saw that there seemed to be lights on the side of the high-speed rail station and suspected that it was the camp of a team. He immediately ordered the convoy to change lanes and come here. It was indeed the camp of Group A of the first year. They were tired and hungry. As soon as they came in, they saw the supplies place not far from the entrance. They rushed up immediately. They picked up bottles of drinking water, bags of bread, and cans of luncheon meat. They ate them voraciously. This made the students of Group A quite complaining. After all, these were their remaining 2 days of rations. Now the more the people in Group B eat, the less they will have. What made them most dissatisfied was that the people in Group B rushed to eat without even saying hello. What's the difference between this and robbery? Luo Yan was not surprised by this situation. In the past 3 years, he had seen many people rushing into other people's houses to steal food. Those people were even worse. Not only did they rob things, they also killed the owner of the house. But other students had never experienced this. Naturally, they were not used to it. Shen Yu and Li Zi were sweating profusely. After entering the hall, they were busy catching their breath. They did not stop their team members in time. Now seeing that the people in Group B had unfriendly faces, and then seeing that their team members were almost throwing themselves on other people's supplies, they exchanged glances quickly. Then Li Zi walked towards his team members and asked everyone to leave the storage area for supplies. Shen Yu said to Li Boheng and the others, I'm sorry, everyone is scared. Besides, we left in a hurry and didn't bring many things. Some people didn't even have time to eat dinner. We have been running for a long time, and now. Li Boheng was about to express his understanding, and a boy from Group B shouted, what's wrong with eating something? Are you so picky with us? Besides, we are all from the same college. Isn't it normal to help each other when we have difficulties? By the way, these supplies are provided by the college. They are not yours. We are also students of the college. Can't we eat them? His words were echoed by many classmates. That's right, it's just eating a little bit of your food. Is it necessary to be picky with us? Don't you have difficulties? Don't be so cold-blooded. These people. You say something, I say something. They take the behavior of taking it without asking for it as a matter of course, and as if it is natural. Just when Li Boheng couldn't listen anymore, and was about to refute it, the boy who had just spoken out suddenly pointed at the mecha Swift outside and said, it's because you took our mecha away, leaving us with only 2 mechas, and having to abandon the camp. Don't you think you've gone too far? Too far? At this time, a voice sounded from behind the crowd. Then what do you think we should do? Chapter 86 2 Warnings. The crowd parted and looked back. It turned out that it was Luo Yan who asked the question. The boy in group B who complained was a little flustered when he saw that it was Liu Yan. Then he looked at the classmates around him and said bravely, "How to do it? Of course, return the Swift to us." Classmates, don't you agree? The people in group B looked at each other. Humans are social animals. Any one of them, if they were to face Liu Yan alone at ordinary times, they would not dare to say such a thing, even if they were beaten to death. But now there are many people around. So someone agreed, Zhao Xianadang is right. Even if we stole your behemoth first, you also stole it back. What's the big deal about stealing our mecha? If we hadn't lost a mecha, we wouldn't be so embarrassed. Another girl also said, and classmate Lizzie is more suitable for driving the Swift. Now that the forbidden area has changed, it is reasonable for you to return the Swift to us. With these two students taking the lead, many students in group B shouted, "Give us back our mechs. Give us back our mechs." They were excited and excited. They all felt that this was a good opportunity. As long as everyone worked together and exerted pressure, they might be able to get the Swift back. Especially Liu Yan, the real owner. He had not spoken a word. He looked scared. This made the students in group B even more excited. They also felt that it was normal for Liu Yan to be scared. Who wouldn't be afraid of being pointed at by thousands of people? At this moment, Liu Yan suddenly snatched the rifle from a classmate next to him. With an expressionless face, he fired a burst of bullets at the feet of those people in group B. Suddenly, the shouting turned into exclamations. Then Liu Yan said coldly, "I got the Swift back. If you have the guts, take it back from me. But if I hear you making trouble again, one person counts as one person. Get out of here." As soon as he finished speaking, the boy in group B said, "Don't you think you are too domineering? Besides, this camp is not yours. Why should we listen to you?" Bang! A bullet grazed the boy's ear, blowing out one of his ears. His cheek was instantly covered in blood. The boy screamed and covered his ears. Liu Yan put down his rifle and said, "This is the second warning. The bullets sweeping the ground just now were the first warning. Now it's the second time. What is the third time?" No one dared to ask. The students in group B were collectively speechless. Faced with Liu Yan's tyranny and cruelty, they dared not test or provoke him again. The hall was suddenly silent. But in this silence, suddenly, there was a dull explosion outside the hall. Then the windows of the hall banged. Liu Yan looked outside the hall. In the dark night outside the high-speed railway station, a ball of fire gushed up and slowly dispersed in the air. Then there was another roar of explosion, and in the red fire streams that rushed into the air, some huge figures were reflected. Behemoths. More than one. Not only did they attack the camp of Group B for a year, now even Group A was attacked. One may be an accident. Twice. Liu Yan thought it was man-made, a conspiracy. In the high-speed railway station camp, the alarm sounded. A student in the command center ran out and shouted, "The radar scanned the giant beast spectrum. There are 7. Before he finished speaking, another staff officer ran out. Not only that, there are 5 or 6 more spectra behind. Crazy. The giant beasts in this forbidden area are crazy. At least 12 giant beasts are coming to the high-speed railway station camp. Now including Shenyu's mecha. There are only 5 mechas in the camp. 5 against 12. There is no chance of winning." Liu Yan immediately shouted, "Split up. Let's lead the giant beasts away. Withdraw from the forbidden area, if there is a chance." He carried the splitting star, and ran out of the waiting hall, and rushed to the mecha placed in the square. At this time, Swift and King Kong have begun to move. The black and white painted Swift half knelt on the ground, raised the sniper rifle barely with both hands, and adjusted the shooting mode to be dedicated to giant beasts. Then he aimed at the head of a flying beast and shot it. The armor-piercing bullet flew out of the chamber, spinning at high speed. The friction with the air caused the bullet head to glow red quickly, leaving a very obvious red track in the night. The flying beast turned around and let the Swift's shot miss. The bullet grazed its back, only shooting off a few feathers and tearing a painless wound on its back. Under Zheng Shan's control, King Kong took off several high explosive grenades embedded in his chest. He pulled off the pull ring and leaned back. King Kong raised his arm back and swung it out like a catapult. Bang! There was a crisp explosion. At the same time, 3 high explosive mines specially designed for giant beasts whizzed away. These grenades were 30 centimeters in diameter and filled with high-intensity explosives. They crossed the distance between the high-speed rail station gate and the giant beast in an instant and landed on a naked insect-like giant beast and suddenly burst into 3 balls of hot and dazzling white light. Boom. The violent explosion became the only sound at this time. The window glass of the waiting hall burst and shattered in the shock wave that followed. Luo Yan, who had already entered the cockpit, could still hear the deafening sound outside. At the same time, the cockpit was shaking slightly, which showed the power of the high explosive grenade. He didn't care about much. He sat on the chair in one step, fastened his seatbelt, turned on various instruments, inserted the neuron wire into the driver interface of the combat suit, put on the helmet, detect brain waves and achieve empathy. The mecha started. The eyes of the head of the white dragon immediately lit up with a faint blue light. The energy furnace began to transmit energy, and the main engine roared slightly. The mecha stood up, turning the floating soil that had just fallen on the body due to the continuous explosions into a myriad of dust and smoke, which fell on the ground. In the cab, Luo Yan's eyes were blank for a moment. Silver white light spots appeared around the red pupil. Braking barrier eye turned on. Suddenly, outside the panoramic window, there were huge groups of grey-white light, and the number was frightening. Luo Yan did not hesitate. He drove the white dragon and strode out of the high-speed rail station. While running, the mecha raised its rifle and fired at the group of giant beasts. Bang, bang, bang. In the powerful gunshots, bullets rubbed against the air, creating lines of fire that swept across the giant beasts. On their thick skins and between their feathers, sparks bloomed. After Luo Yan fired nearly 10 bullets in a row, he put away his gun and ran away. He had fulfilled his obligations. As for how many giant beasts he could attract and whether the students in the high-speed rail station could be transferred in time, it all depended on God's will. Among the group of giant beasts, 2 giant beasts rushed out of the array at this time. One was a Gudaiwa with a single horn on its head. The other looked like a giant gorilla. These 2 giant beasts, one was flying in the sky and the other was running on the ground, chasing the white dragon. Chapter 87. Investing a lot of money. Falcon Base. Except for Wei Fenghua, all other teachers went to the forbidden area for support. First, the camp of Group B of the first year was attacked. Then Group A of the first year. Wei Fenghua frowned slightly, with a bad feeling in his heart. He picked up the communicator and contacted the security, asking them to strengthen their vigilance. At this moment, gunshots and explosions were heard outside. Flames burst out outside the tent. The impact of the airflow rushed into the tent, making Wei Fenghua's clothes rustle. Sure enough, something happened. It happened suddenly. However, Wei Fenghua did not panic. He coughed twice and took out a pair of black half-finger boxing gloves from his pocket. He put them on his hands. With a rustle, someone opened the tent and entered. Wei Fenghua put his hands behind his back and turned around slowly. He saw a not very tall figure. This man was middle-aged, with grey hair combed back, revealing a smooth forehead. He wore a black eye patch on his left eye. He wore a well-fitting combat uniform and military boots. A military atmosphere arose spontaneously. On that weathered face with distinct edges and colors, there was a hint of smile at the corner of his mouth. It was the owner of the base, Gao Rui, the boss of the Black Hawk Company. What wine brought Mr. Gao here? Wei Fenghua seemed to be unaware that the school security outside was fighting with the Black Hawk Company and said in a leisurely tone. Gao Rui laughed, as expected of Director Wei. You are calm in the face of danger. I admire you very much. Wei Fenghua smiled faintly. Danger? What danger? Do you mean the battle outside, or you, Mr. Gao? Gao Rui applauded. Director Wei is really a great general. Indeed. For you, who has reached the realm of Tangsuan in visualization, whether it is the battle outside or Gao. To Director Wei, it is not a threat. Wei Fenghua frowned slightly. Since you know it, you are still fearless. It seems that there are other means. But I'm more curious, do you know what you are doing? Gao Rui walked around the tents casually, and his hands gently wiped the tables and instruments. Of course Gao understands. Gao set up a trap to lure away other teachers in the camp. Another open attack on the college camp. When this matter is made public, Gao and even the entire Falcon base will become Guangling's enemy. It is very likely that Guangling City will retaliate against Gao tomorrow. Weni Fenghua aside, it seems that you have gained a lot of benefits. At least, the value should exceed that of the entire Falcon base. Tell me, what do you want to do? Gao Rui paused, spread his hands and smiled. Nothing. Someone just wants to meet with Director Weni. Gao is the person responsible for sending Director Weni to meet that gentleman. Weni Fenghua coughed twice and said, I'm just the director of the teaching department of a school. I shouldn't be worth it for Mr. Gao to risk losing the base to do this, right? Yes, I know. You have investigated my background very clearly. You don't want me, but Zeng, right? Gao Rui laughed. Director Weni is really observant. Nothing can be hidden from you. Yes, we know you very well. I know that you and Captain D are both students of the third phase of Hanmeng. 20 years ago, I entered that world with Captain D. There, you learned visualization and mecha driving together. But at that time, the technology of mecha was still very backward. And in an actual combat, Director Weni, you pushed empathy to 300%. It caused extremely serious pollution to your body and mind, and you had to leave Hanmeng. After that, the underground city was built, and you and Captain D became teachers of the academy again. But after Captain D taught for a year, he decided to join the Surface Exploration Corps. The two of you parted ways. But you are close friends, and you have a life and death friendship. So some things, if you say them, should be twice the result with half the effort. This is the main reason why that gentleman spent a lot of money to invite you to meet him. Weni Fenghua smiled faintly. It seems that the conservatives have also invested a lot of money. Then, is this gentleman Luo Xianai? Gao Rui smiled and said, you will know when you go there. Bright yellow light gushed out of Weni Fenghua's body, forming the image of mountains and peaks. In the overlapping shadows of the mountains, a vast ocean emerged silently. Thousands of mountains are majestic, and the sea is boundless. Look at the mountains and the sea. Suddenly, Weni Fenghua's body was full of meaning, showing the height of the mountains and the boundlessness of the sea. It was the aura of the great perfection of the practice. Gao Rui smiled and said, intermediate great perfection. Yes, I'm only at the 5th level of the elementary level. In the eyes of Director Weni, I'm like an ant. You use the intermediate great perfection of the practice to deal with me. Director Weni can be said to think highly of me. But I'm sorry, I must win tonight. He had just finished speaking. Wisps of black, cold, and illusory smoke suddenly appeared in the tent. They were extremely black, but in the darkness, they flickered with tiny bright lights, like stars in the night sky. The smoke was ethereal, and made the tent look dreamlike and beautiful. But after it appeared, the fluctuation of Weni Fenghua's yuanli dropped sharply. The shadow of the thousands of mountains surrounding the sea also became blurred. In the end, the thousands of mountains were still there, but the vast sea disappeared. Weni Fenghua's yuanli fluctuation suddenly dropped from the intermediate level to the primary level. He closed his eyes slightly and suddenly activated his skills, wanting to burst out the yuanli level above the advanced level, the Tongsuan realm. But after repeatedly activating the skills, the yuanli in his body seemed to be asleep and had no reaction. No matter how Weni Fenghua activated it repeatedly, it could not stir up a wave. Weni Fenghua looked up suddenly. Is this the netherworld force field? Using the netherworld crystal to simulate the internal force field of the Yambu space, can it be put into actual combat? Gao Rui applauded. Director Weni is really well informed. Yes, this is an netherworld force field, but it is still far from being put into actual combat. Duration, range of action. They are both pitifully small, but it is barely enough to deal with Director Weni. Weni Fenghua sighed. The force field environment inside the Yambu space extremely suppresses the Yuan force. The netherworld force field simulated by the Yuan crystal has a similar function. The higher the level of visualization, the greater the suppression. It's hard for you to come up with such a technical linoop to deal with me. I'm deeply honored. As soon as the voice fell, Weni Fenghua launched an attack. Even though his Yuan force was suppressed, but his experience and skills were still there. Step forward. Sprint. Raise your arms. Put your palms together. Stab. The action was done in one go. The hand in the black glove, like a black sharp blade, stabbed Gaoyui's throat. Chapter 88 Bloody Battlefield. 9. Gifa City. Woo. The wind whistled. That was the air current created by the mecha running wildly. The silver white giant was running in the city. The weight of nearly 2,000 tons made the white dragon sink deeply into the road every time it stepped. When the mecha's feet were pushed out again, it would inevitably bring up a cloud of mud and rocks. The silver white giant ran so fast that the earth shook. In order to get rid of the two giant beasts behind him, Luo Yan did not adopt any roundabout strategies. He just increased the power to the limit and then ran straight. If he encountered an obstacle, he would shoot it with a gun and then crash into it. In this way, he could avoid slowing down and detouring. But his luck was not good. The two giant beasts chasing behind him, whether it was the Gudao or the gorilla, were not slow. Luo Yan looked at the remaining energy of the mecha. He quickly determined that continuing to run like this would only be a waste of energy. Once the energy was used up, if he was caught up by the giant beast, he would be dead. Then, the remaining options were already obvious. Luo Yan looked back. A large amount of data appeared in his vision. The speed of the two giant beasts, the distance between them and the mecha, the speed of airflow, air humidity, etc. These data allowed him to clearly grasp that, if the mecha stopped, the Gudao would contact the mecha first. Then, in 5 seconds, the gorilla would arrive. At the same time, the information about the two giant beasts flashed through Luo Yan's mind in an instant. Codename, Gudao level, lower level T-type, feathered insect features, horn spear, feather arrow, asterisk 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 codename, axis. Pronounced the same as star level, lower level 3 type, caterpillar features, sprinting, supernatural power, asterisk asterisk asterisk. At this time, in the panoramic window, a group of buildings blocked the front of the white dragon. The white dragon did not crash into it directly like before. Under Luo Yan's control, the mecha slowed down for the first time. This allowed the Gudao behind to take the opportunity to pounce. In midair, the Gudao spread its wings, and the feathers on the pair of wings stood up. Then, they poured down like bullets, densely packed, covering the back of the mecha. Feather arrows. Luo Yan was prepared. After slowing down, he controlled the mecha to roll to the side, so that most of the feather arrows missed. The feather arrows that hit the mecha aroused a little bit of Yuanli brilliance on the outer armor of the mecha. Luo Yan had already activated the viewing mountains and seas. Under the effect of the empathy system, the surface of the mecha was covered with a layer of Yuanli, and the texture of the mountain rock was faintly revealed. This greatly increased the defensive performance of the mecha. At least, it was not just a wave of feather arrows that could break the defense. After the white dragon rolled sideways, to avoid the feather arrows, it immediately turned around and formed seals with both hands. Suddenly, a dark illusory rope rose into the sky. Number 1 mystical art, black rope. The Gudao, which was making a diving action, was suddenly entangled by the neck. Luo Yan pulled it hard. He used the black rope to throw it towards the building complex. The figure of the Gudao continued to enlarge in the window glass of the building. Finally, the giant bird crashed into the building, causing all the windows to explode. The entire body of the Gudao was embedded in the building. The rooms, walls, pillars, furniture, everything in the building was like paper. They were smashed to pieces. A successful strike. A strange light flashed in Luo Yan's red eyes. Yuanli rushed into the acupuncture points. Kalen wheel. Boom. The Yuanli light like blazing flames rose from the body of the white dragon. The Yuanli fluctuations were explosively opened. The mecha engine roared. The silver white giant pounced on the giant bird in the building. At this time, the Gudao slightly adjusted, and its head stuck out of the building, looking at the white dragon approaching at high speed, and suddenly lowered its head, pointing the horn on its head at the mecha. Bang! The front end of the horn on the Gudao's head lit up with a red light, and ejected a cone of light waves. The light wave was like a gun, shooting towards the white dragon fiercely. Horn gun. Luo Yan's eyes were blank for a moment. The barrier breaking eye appeared. A large amount of data appeared in his field of vision. He quickly calculated the trajectory and speed of the red horn gun. He gritted his teeth and tilted the fuselage slightly. let the cone-shaped red light wave pass through his chest. The mecha shook violently. The layer of view only on the outer armor on the chest of the body immediately dissipated, and then the outer armor glowed red, bursting with cracks, and sparks flickered inside. But the white dragon did not stop there. In the whistling sound of the airflow caused by high-speed movement, the white dragon raised his right hand, opened his wrist armor, and ejected the chain blade. It hit the building like a white rainbow breaking through the air. The chain blade exploded with lightning, and it crossed the neck of the Gudao like thunder, cutting the flesh and cutting the neck bone. The chain blade instantly swept out from the back of the giant beast's neck. It continued to move. It swept away various obstacles in the building along the way. When the white dragon crashed out from the other side of the building collapsed with a loud bang, pressing the headless body of the Gudao under the ruins. The head of the Gudao fell to the ground, and the horn on its head was still emitting light waves. The light waves randomly swept through the air, sweeping the trees, overpasses, and roads in front of the building. A large amount of soil splashed into the air like a raging wave, and countless gravel swept around like bullets. In such chaos, the gorilla that came later protected his head with both hands, screamed, and soared into the sky. Carrying gravel and soil, he passed the ruins, and appeared on the top of the white dragon. The giant beast Aobo spread its arms, and clenched its fists to protect its head. Its two arms suddenly grew larger. Then, like a meteorite falling from the sky, it fell down fiercely. As soon as the white dragon raised his head, he was submerged by the shadow of the giant beast. Bang! As soon as the gorilla hit the mecha, the ground shook. Then the street seemed to have experienced a terrible earthquake, and the ground shook violently, undulating like waves. Some buildings rose, some sank, some tilted, and some were shattered. Trees, cars, streetlights, corpses, anything that was lighter in weight was thrown high up, and then fell down like raindrops with the shattered debris. The giant ape smashed the entire block, causing smoke columns to spray into the air, and then slowly formed a sea of fog that lingered in the night sky for a long time. However, the giant beast that made such a big noise did not take the next step. If you look closely, you will find that it seems to be hanging on something, with all four limbs hanging on the ground. The next second, blood spurted from its back like a fountain, and then splashed onto the ground. Like large clumps of ketchup, it graffitied the earth and the surrounding ruins red, releasing a large amount of red poison into the area. When the blood fountain was exhausted, you could see that a section of the chain blade broke through the back of the giant beast. And under the body of the giant beast, White Dragon half knelt on the ground, with his left hand bent, and holding the giant gorilla's neck. He used his shoulder to support the beast's body. As for the chain blade in his right hand, it pierced into the gorilla's chest. Chapter 89, Crossing the River and Destroying the Bridge. White Dragon, Luo Yan let out a long breath, recalling what had just happened. When the gorilla rushed down, his fists were aimed at the mecha's shoulders. If he was hit, the white dragon's hands would be shattered on the spot. Under the stimulation of the crisis, Luo Yan's barrier-breaking eye was fully activated. A large number of readings appeared instantly, allowing him to clearly grasp the angle, strength, falling speed, arrival time and other information of the giant beast's attack. The next second, Luo Yan controlled the mecha and adjusted the angle. Let the white dragon turn 90 degrees sideways. At the same time, he raised his right hand to block, and also used it as a buffer. Luo Yan also used all the shock absorbers of the mecha, and adjusted the elasticity of hundreds of hydraulic shock absorbing components to the maximum, in order to meet the impact. The result of this was that the giant beast fell from the sky, and the fists that were originally intended to bombard the mecha's shoulders finally fell to the ground. As for its body, it was carried down by the white dragon. Then Luo Yan took this opportunity to use the chain blade to break through the body, smashing the important organs in the body of the giant beast, killing it on the spot. At this time, in the cab, various instruments were sending alarms. Although the white dragon killed two giant beasts in a row, it was first rubbed by the horn gun of the Gudao, causing damage to the chest armor, including some circuits and components inside. Then, in order to catch the gorilla, more than half of the shock absorbers were overloaded and collectively scrapped. In addition, even if all shock absorbers have been used, the shock just now still caused most of the joint components of the mecha to be damaged to varying degrees. In short, the pile of damage reports on the computer now gave Luo Yan a headache. He turned on the self-check command and finally came to the conclusion that the white dragon is now only 37% functional. The energy is still half. However, such data is already difficult to support high-intensity combat. It can only be used for walking at most, and a few shots. Luo Yan is a mecha master. He also learned simple maintenance of mechs in the academy. But to deal with these problems now, it is not something that can be done by one person. Some machines are needed to assist. More importantly, he has nothing to replace the damaged parts. After thinking about it, Luo Yan sent the battle damage report of the mecha and the current coordinates to the jury and let them deal with it. Then he looked around, and then Luo Yan controlled the mecha to find a hidden place, to hide the mecha first to avoid attracting the giant beast. After doing all this, Luo Yan turned off most of the functions of the mecha to save energy. He took the star splitting, and opened the cab to the ground. In case the giant beast discovered this place, he could only abandon the mecha first. After all, the mecha's target is too big, and now it can't fight. There is no meaning and value in defending it. On the contrary, Luo Yan, who can now open the ghost wheel, is much safer by himself. Even if he encounters a swarm of parasites, he will not be as embarrassed as before. Coming to the ground, Luo Yan did not move around casually. He hid in a ruin first, and observed the surroundings. Finally, his sight fell on a building that had miraculously survived the earthquake just now. Luo Yan used various covers as cover, and sneaked into the building like a ghost. This is a commercial and residential building. The ground floor is a large shopping mall. The decoration is still very fashionable. Unfortunately, it is now occupied by plants and vines. Fortunately, there are no weird black hairs in it. This made Luo Yan feel relieved. In addition, he used the barrier-breaking eye to scan, and did not find the biological grey light of the giant beast parasite in the building. Only then did he feel at ease to enter. Luo Yan had just walked into the mall. Suddenly, there was a faint sound of gunfire outside. He looked outside the building. It seemed that there was a vehicle chasing. Luo Yan quickly retreated deep into the mall, and hid in the mall management office on the first floor. Unfortunately, the surveillance in the management office could no longer be used. Otherwise, Luo Yan could see what was happening outside. Now, he can only open the barrier-breaking eye and his vision penetrates the obstacles. He saw some biological grey light outside the building getting closer and closer. Outside the building, the terrible impact of being hit by the giant beast, like a meteorite falling from the sky, turned this block into ruins. The ground was rugged and there were many debris. There was a street lamp post lying here, and a fallen street tree there. This made the driving of the two chasing parties seem particularly dangerous and exciting. As the vehicle approached, Luo Yan, who was hiding in the mall, could already hear the roar of the engine and the friction of the tires. In addition, there were fierce gunshots and explosions from time to time. This made Luo Yan frown deeply. He wondered if these people were not afraid of attracting the giant beast. At the same time, he couldn't figure out who was chasing outside. When an off-road vehicle came near the commercial and residential building, a grenade fell from the sky and landed on the co-pilot seat. The driver cursed and jumped directly from the car. The next second, with a bang, the off-road vehicle exploded into a ball of fire. The vehicle caught fire and crashed into a pile of rocks. Then the fuel tank leaked oil and was stained with flames, and there was another explosion. The driver rolled and crawled, running towards the commercial and residential building. After all, this was the only place nearby where he could deal with the pursuers. Behind him, two off-road vehicles were running wildly, and the roar of the engines was occasionally drowned out by the gloomy sound of gunfire. Just as the driver in front ran into the building, he was finally shot in the shoulder, and a large piece of flesh was blown off by the bullet, spraying a cloud of blood. He was also thrown over several times by the impact of the bullet, and then he got up and rushed into the mall in a panic. The two off-road vehicles directly smashed the mall door, rushed into the lobby violently, and then stopped. The car door opened. Two executives of the Black Hawk Company, the monk and the fourth donkey, got out of an off-road vehicle respectively. They exchanged glances. Then they waved their hands. Then several base soldiers rushed up like wolves and tigers. Then gunshots were heard inside the mall, and flames were lit. In the mall management office, Luo Yan's eyes slowly narrowed, and his expression was alert. In his field of vision, he had seen several groups of human-shaped biological grey light coming to the corridor here. Then he heard a man outside yelling, "Black Hawk Company, fuck you. You are a bunch of bastards who don't keep your word and are ungrateful. Even if you kill me to silence me, you won't die well." Black Hawk Company? Luo Yan was puzzled. What did the Black Hawk Company do in the forbidden area? Then he heard someone say in a muffled voice, "Amitabha, why are you angry, benefactor? You must know that everyone will die one day. It's the same whether you die early or late. Why don't you give up resistance so that you can die more comfortably?" The man before cursed, "Shut your stinky mouth, you wine and meat monk. You will definitely go to hell when you die. I will work for you and lead the monster to attack those students according to your requirements. Not only did you fail to fulfill your promise, you also want to kill us to silence us. Do you still have a conscience?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 90, Killing Two Birds with One Stone. Lead the beasts to attack those students. When Luo Yan heard this, his eyes half closed, and there was an undisguised murderous intent in his red eyes. But he did not take any action. After killing two beasts, he consumed a lot of energy. His mental and physical strength also suffered a certain loss. Outside, there was more than one person from the Black Hawk Company. In the breaking barrier's eye, the energy values of two of them were not less than his. In this case, Luo Yan chose to stay put. He only waited for the people from the Black Hawk Company outside to leave, and then tried to inform the judges of the matter. As for the one who was to be silenced, he was not related to him. Luo Yan stood by and watched without any psychological burden. He quietly put on a helmet and completely isolated himself from the outside world to prevent any accidents. For example, the Black Hawk Company threw a gas bomb or something. At this time, a scream was heard outside. Then in Luo Yan's breaking barrier's eye, he saw a group of human-shaped grey light crashing into the door of the management office. The door was immediately broken, and a man rolled in. The man was wearing camouflaged combat uniform. His body was covered with blood, and his right hand hung down unnaturally. It seemed that he had been disabled. A few people followed him in. One of them had a donkey face, with an average of 156 yuanli and 298 HP. The other was a fat man, with an average of 162 yuanli and 325 HP. Taking himself as a reference, it is not difficult to see that the visualization realm of these two people is the primary third level. Although Luo Yan is one level higher than them, after consumption, his yuanli is only 86 yuanli. However, he is not as good as the other party in quantity, but the quality of the fourth level is better than those two. The only problem is that he originally didn't want to cause trouble for himself, but now he is looking into the eyes of others. Donkey Laozi and the monk from Black Hawk Company were both shocked. They didn't expect that there was still a person hiding in the management office. They saw Luo Yan wearing a full combat uniform and a helmet. He looked like a mecha pilot. They immediately knew his identity. Donkey Laozi laughed dryly and said, "Classmate, this is our family matter and has nothing to do with you. Can you pretend that you didn't see it?" The monk also narrowed his eyes and smiled, without showing any hostility. But in his heart, he was already planning how to kill this student. This student was hiding in the management office. Maybe he had heard the conversation between them just now. But these students were not ordinary people. It would take some effort to kill them. Now it is more important to kill this mercenary first. After the person is dead, it will not be difficult to kill this student. Luo Yan nodded. He didn't want to have a direct conflict here. He would make plans after leaving here. But at this moment, the mercenary on the ground shouted, "They are from the Black Hawk Company. They hired us to induce the giant beast to attack you. They want to kill you." Donkey Laozi immediately shouted angrily, looking for death. He dodged and pounced on the mercenary, habitually pulling the man in front of him, using his body to block himself to avoid being attacked by the student. This donkey-faced man has been rolling on the surface for many years, and he is experienced and ruthless. His judgment was undoubtedly correct, because when he made a move, Luo Yan also rushed over. Before the sprint, Luo Yan's whole body burst into a burst of yuanli light. The bright yellow light was like a blazing flame, rushing up. Luo Yan once again Kun wheel, in exchange for explosive power, allowing him to approach Donkey Face and the mercenary in an instant. The mercenary felt a flash before his eyes, and Luo Yan's face in the helmet had already appeared in front of him. He couldn't help but feel happy, thinking that Luo Yan wanted to save him. But then, he saw Luo Yan's face in the helmet. His expression was indifferent. The pair of red eyes flashed with cold murderous intent. The next second, a faint blue light appeared in his vision. Then his throat felt cold, and then his consciousness began to fade. In the eyes of Donkey Laozi, he saw Luo Yan suddenly explode, and when he approached the mercenary, he drew his long sword. Without the slightest hesitation, he pierced the mercenary's neck with one sword. And the sword did not stop, stabbing directly into his own throat. The plan of killing two birds with one stone. No matter how rich Donkey Laozi's experience was, he never expected that a student from the underground city, a flower grown in a greenhouse, who had never experienced the cruelty of the surface, would be so straightforward when killing people. He killed the mercenary without saying a word, and took the opportunity to kill himself. This student was even more cruel than most people living on the surface. Luo Yan pierced the mercenary's throat with a sword. In addition to the fact that this part was more fragile than the chest, it was easier to pierce, and there was a greater chance of killing the donkey-faced man behind him. It was also because the mercenary did not hesitate to drag him down in order to survive. For those who endangered his life, Luo Yan would not hesitate to kill them. All these changes happened too quickly. From Luo Yan's action to the mercenary being stabbed to death, it only took a blink of an eye. At the critical moment of life and death, the donkey-faced man screamed and pushed the mercenary towards Luo Yan. He stepped back, hoping to keep a distance. But he saw that Luo Yan's long sword, which was covered with dark blue cracks, suddenly shattered. The irregular fragments burst out and shot towards him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A sharp whistle sounded, and Donkey Face's vision suddenly became bright with stars. He heard a series of puff, puff, puff sounds in his ears. It was like something sank into his flesh. He stepped back several steps. Then his entire vision was shattered. The monk next to him suddenly opened his eyes. He witnessed the whole process. After seeing Luo Yan pierce the mercenary's neck with a sword, his sword burst and shot out again, and countless fragments dragged faint light marks, passing over his companion's head like a meteor shower. Then Donkey Laozi's head was like a watermelon smashed by a stick, and it shattered into pieces all over the ground. The monk had killed people before. On the contrary, many people died at his hands. But seeing Donkey Face die in front of him, a strong sense of danger suddenly rose in his heart. His first reaction was not to run, but to kill Luo Yan. Stifle the danger. This is an instinct honed through countless battles. The monk's seemingly bulky body floated backwards like a weightless balloon. At the same time, his big hands like sunflower fans raised left and right, throwing 4 or 5 grenades. Luo Yan didn't wait for the splitting star to reorganize. He grabbed the mercenary's body and threw it over. At the same time, his body showed yuanli, forming a vague shadow of mountains, and rushed forward with his head in his arms. Boom boom boom. The explosions continued. Fireballs bloomed one after another. The mercenary's body was instantly blown to pieces. Even the soldiers who rushed into the management room were affected by the explosion. The red fire streams suddenly gushed out from the windows and the door. The monk floated out of the door in advance, but was only licked by the fire wave, and his face was immediately blackened. But at this time, from the flames that shrank into the management room, a group of black shadows rushed out. Suddenly, they crashed into the monk's arms. Bang! The fat on the monk's chest was agitated. It turned out that he was punched. Chapter 91. Distinguishing Gratitude and Grudges. There was a fist on the monk's chest. Flesh waves were rising all around. There was a buzzing sound in his ears. Then he heard a series of bone-crushing sounds. He saw the owner of the fist. Seeing Luo Yan's calm face in the helmet, he was filled with strong indescribable fear. This made him roar. Stirring up his yuan power, his hands glowed with a bright yellow light. He slapped Luo Yan's chest heavily. Luo Yan flew backwards in response to the palm strike. The already blurred phantoms of the mountains on his body were smashed by the monk in an instant. Inside the helmet, Luo Yan spurted out a blood mist and fell to the ground. The monk was still standing. His eyes were wide open. The next second, his body suddenly deformed. As if he had lost the support of his bones, he turned into a pool of muddy flesh and blood. All the bones in his body were shattered. All because of Luo Yan's bone crusher. Luo Yan was not doing well either. Although he had used the bodies of the mercenaries to block the most violent stage of the grenade explosion, the impact of the subsequent explosion almost broke Luo Yan apart. If he hadn't practiced observing the mountains and seas, if his combat uniform hadn't been able to resist impact, Luo Yan wouldn't have been able to rush out of the explosion zone from the front with just a corpse, let alone take the opportunity to kill the monk with Bone Crusher. Even so, the monk's dying counterattack was not so easy to deal with. Not only did it shatter Luo Yan's body protecting energy, but it also caused him to suffer multiple internal injuries. If Luo Yan's observing the mountains and seas hadn't been practiced to the 4th level, and his skin, flesh, tendons, and bones had all been tempered, those 2 palms just now would have been enough to stop Luo Yan's heart. Luo Yan lay on the ground for a while. After taking a breath, he took off his helmet and wiped his face. Then he took out a box from his pocket, opened the box, and took out several bottles of medicine. He first inhaled the Huyung that could boost energy and relieve pain. He also inhaled a bottle of crossing Qi that could activate blood circulation, remove blood stasis, and regulate internal injuries. Finally, he took a bottle of golden boiling agent that can stimulate nerves and keep the excitement in a short time. At this moment, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. Then he heard the roar of a giant beast outside the building. Luo Yan immediately opened the barrier-breaking eye and looked in the direction of the sound. The world lost its color and texture in his eyes and became a simple drawing expressed with lines. He immediately saw a huge grey light like a flying bird flying across the sky. Then in that direction, he saw a small grey-white light spot. Sure enough, a giant beast passed by outside. Moreover, there was another person near the giant beast. Luo Yan couldn't help but wonder. This person should not be from the Black Hawk Company. If it was from the Black Hawk Company, there would be no reason for his companions to fight here, and he would hide far away. At the same time, it should not be a teacher from the judging panel. It is impossible to be a rescuer from the college. If it was a college teacher or rescuer, at least they would act in the form of a team. After thinking about it, there are only 2 possibilities. Either it is a student who has a similar experience as himself and is left alone, or they are adventurers or explorers of the Falcon base. Now, because of the appearance of the giant beast, the grey light spot quickly moved away. Soon Luo Yan could not see it anymore. Luo Yan closed the barrier-breaking eye and picked up the star-splitting. He glanced at the corpse on the ground. He walked over silently and stabbed the vital part of the corpse with his long sword. He didn't care whether these people were really dead or pretending to be dead. In short, turning them all into corpses is undoubtedly the safest. Just as Luo Yan walked to the door and was about to attack a corpse lying by the door, the corpse suddenly jumped up and knelt down and said, "Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Let me tell you something. Do you know why the company let these mercenaries lure the giant beasts to attack you?" Luo Yan shook his head. The soldier immediately said, "It's to attract all your teachers to the forbidden area. Our boss invited your teacher who aren't a dinner several times, and from him, he found out the details of your teachers. We know what you will do when you encounter an emergency." Luo Yan frowned. What's the point of attracting teachers to the forbidden area? He seemed to see Luo Yan's doubts. The soldier continued, "The purpose of attracting teachers is to leave your dean alone. Our boss's ultimate goal is actually your dean. Someone wants to meet with your dean alone. So our company planned all this. And, to deal with your dean, that person also gave our company a secret weapon. As for what it is, I don't know, but it's enough to deal with your dean. Maybe your dean is now a prisoner. He will be sent away soon." Luo Yan slightly widened his eyes. Black Hawk Company did so much. It turned out to be to deal with his mentor Wei Fenghe. Seeing Luo Yan's surprise, the soldier took the opportunity to escape. He wanted to drive the off-road vehicle back to the base and then report what happened here. It will definitely be a great achievement. In addition, Luo Yan killed 2 supervisors. The boss must have killed this student. The boss will not know about this student. He betrayed him to save his life. But at this time, the soldier heard the wind behind his ears. He didn't know what happened. His chest felt cold. There was a sword tip breaking out of his body. The soldier wanted to say that Luo Yan went back on his word. But at this time, Luo Yan's voice sounded in his ears. I didn't agree to let you go. The soldier remembered that from beginning to end, Luo Yan didn't say a word. He didn't give a wink. He didn't agree to trade with him. He was filled with endless regret and unwillingness. In this emotion, his consciousness finally slipped into the darkness. Pulling out the splitting star from the corpse, Luo Yan searched the bodies of many corpses. He found some potions from the donkey, face and the monk. From the soldiers, he searched a few rifles that had not exploded and some magazines. Luo Yan found a backpack and threw all the rifles, magazines, and potions into it. He threw it over his shoulder and carried it away. He first returned to the mecha and entered the cockpit. He wanted to contact the judges. He found that the previous message had failed to be sent. After a check, it turned out that the communication system was faulty. Luo Yan turned on the communicator again and tried to contact his classmates. After several attempts, there was no other sound in the communicator except electronic noise. He looked calm and analyzed the current situation. In the case of being unable to send a message, if Wei Fenghe was to be saved, there were only 2 options. One was to find a way to meet up with the others, preferably to find the teacher who came to the forbidden area for support. The other was to act alone and see what he could do. The people from the Black Hawk Company had vehicles left behind, which could fully meet the needs of going to the base. Luo Yan made a choice quickly. He chose the second one. Wanting to find the teacher who came to the forbidden area was like looking for a needle in a haystack. As for standing idly by, that was not an option for Luo Yan. Wei Fenghe was his mentor. He had taken care of him a lot in the past 2 months at school. Luo Yan's principle is to take revenge when there is revenge and to repay kindness when there is kindness. Chapter 92, Rampage. The forbidden area tonight is extremely uneasy. Fireballs explode here, giant beasts roar there, making the whole forbidden area noisy. Just like just now, a flying beast suddenly passed by, breaking Chijio's plan. Wearing a dark red long windbreaker, black leather jacket and leather pants, and a white mask, Chijio came all the way from Guangling City. He accepted a mission. Assassinate Luo Yan. He has been in the forbidden area for many days. He is looking for opportunities every day. As a killer, Chijio has a good habit. He will never act easily without absolute certainty, because he knows that after taking action, if he fails to kill the target, the follow-up will become quite troublesome. He doesn't like trouble. He doesn't like to show off. He is a simple and unpretentious person. He only likes to kill the target in a quick and decisive manner. Tonight, Chijio had found a good opportunity. The giant beast rushed into the high-speed rail station camp. The target drove away alone in a mecha. A lone target. Chijio likes it the most. And just now, the target had a conflict with the Black Hawk Company. After killing 2 people in a row, his physical strength and all aspects of his condition dropped significantly. This was the best opportunity to kill the target and complete the mission. Chijio was already prepared. He set up his favorite sniper rifle, the Tyrant. A rough sniper rifle that he modified himself. It was powerful and had a long range. But just as he put the target into the crotches, a flying beast suddenly passed by, as if attracted by the fire that exploded in the building not long ago. This forced Chijio to give up the sniper plan. He believed that the appearance of the giant beast had already alerted the target, and if he forced a shot at this time, the gunshot would attract the giant beast to himself. He was originally fully confident. Now he was not even half sure. After cancelling the plan, Chijio left quickly. He was not worried that he would attract the attention of the giant beast or be attacked by parasites. He smeared the blood of the giant beast on his face. The smell of the giant beast's blood would make other giant beasts make wrong judgments. At the same time, it would also make parasites afraid to approach. This was Chijiyu's reliance on acting alone in the forbidden area. Of course, this method sometimes fails, and it will bring danger and trouble. Moreover, in addition to the red poison in the blood of the behemoth, there are other substances that are harmful to the human body. If it were not for the smooth implementation of tonight's operation, Chijiyu would not easily smear blood on his face. Unfortunately, even if he had done so, the operation was still disrupted. Fortunately, he is a patient person. Without patience, you can't be a killer. Chijiyu wiped the blood on his face while walking, and took out a bottle of antidote, and took a sip. Just when he was about to look for another opportunity, he heard the roar of the off-road vehicle engine. He saw an off-road vehicle passing quickly on the road in the distance. It was speeding towards the outside of the forbidden area. Chijiyu immediately took out an optical telescope. A moment later, he saw Luoyan. Putting down the telescope, Chijiyu glanced in the direction where the off-road vehicle left. Make a judgment. Is he going back to the base? So the killer carried the tyrant on his back and quickly ran towards a means of transportation he had hidden nearby. The wind was whistling, blowing Luoyan's hair back. After he left the mecha cab, he returned to the commercial and residential building. He drove away the off-road vehicle parked by Black Hawk Company on the first floor of the mall. If the mecha was not seriously damaged and unable to fight, Luoyan could drive the mecha to the base instead of the current off-road vehicle, but it didn't matter. He remembered that there were mechs in the Falcon base. 3. Luoyan had already formed a rough plan in his mind. The process of leaving the forbidden area was smooth. It seemed that the Behemoths and the Academy's mechs were fighting in every corner of the edge of the forbidden area. Luoyan's small off-road vehicle did not attract any attention. After leaving the forbidden area, Luoyan went straight to the base along the highway. After a while, he could vaguely see the lights in the base. He didn't know what Wei Fenghua's current situation was. But one thing is certain. Even if Wei Fenghua was captured, his life would not be in danger for the time being. Luoyan's only worry is that the other party has transferred Wei Fenghua. That would be troublesome. And judging from the layout of Black Hawk Company tonight, once they catch Wei Fenghua, the probability of them transferring immediately is quite high. As soon as this thought came to mind, Luoyan saw a huge black shadow coming out of the base in the distance. Mecha. When Luoyan got closer, he saw with the help of the lights in the base that it was a black mecha. It has a classic shape, with scratches all over the outer armor, and a pendant similar to a rocket thruster on the back. It seems that it can accelerate when needed, but I don't know if it has the ability to fly. The mecha was holding a rifle in his hand and a shoulder cannon on his left shoulder. No other weapons were seen. However, this does not mean that the mecha only has two weapons, a rifle and a shoulder cannon. For example, missiles, or cold weapons such as longswords. It is possible that they are attracted in the armor of other parts of the mecha. The black mecha slowly walked out of the base, and outside the base, there was a convoy. Luoyan's heart tightened when he saw it. Sure enough, Black Hawk Company is ready to transfer his mentor. Luoyan quickly deduced in his mind. If he rushed up now, he alone would not be able to fight against a convoy plus a mecha. Want to rob the mecha? That requires the driver to be unconscious, or there is no driver in the mecha. In short, if the empathy system has landed a signal, Luoyan will not be able to achieve empathy with the mecha and perform remote operation. At this time, he glanced at the base. There are 3 mechs in the Falcon base. But now, only one has been dispatched. That is to say, there are still 2 in the base. Luoyan immediately turned the steering wheel and put on a helmet that he had taken from the body of a Black Hawk warrior. He drove the off-road vehicle off the road and stepped on the accelerator to the bottom. The off-road vehicle roared down a hillside. At the end of the hillside, there was a barbed wire fence of the base. Luoyan rushed over without even looking. The barbed wire with a height of only 1.5 meters could not stop the off-road vehicle with the carriage fully opened. Luoyan knocked it down in one go. The off-road vehicle ran directly over the barbed wire. In front of it were the chaotic residential houses outside the base. Luoyan drove the SUV without slowing down, crashing directly into a relatively wide alley. A resident opened the door upon hearing the sound, but the door was knocked away by the SUV, and the resident fell to the ground in fear. After a while, he rushed out of the house and cursed. Luo Yan drove the SUV recklessly in these complex alleys. After a while, he found that it was a waste of time to drive like this. So he locked the direction of the Black Hawk Company's mecha warehouse. Then he honked the horn wildly and crashed directly through the fragile sheds and iron houses. At this time, the survival instincts of the residents of the base were fully stimulated. Some of the residents who were on Luo Yan's track jumped out of the window, and some shrank into the corner. Each showed his magical powers. Miraculously, they all survived this disaster. After Luo Yan crashed into another shed, he had already seen the square of the Black Hawk Company. He saw that there were cordons and barricades there, and soldiers were patrolling. Chapter 93, Wanderer. In the square in front of the Black Hawk Company building, the patrolling soldiers heard the roar of the engine and saw an off-road vehicle speeding towards them. At first, they raised their rifles nervously, but when they saw the people sitting in the car, they were wearing the same tactical helmets as them. Later, it was the soldiers who went out and came back. They put down their rifles again. Then someone raised a flag to slow down. However, the off-road vehicle had no intention of stopping. In addition, the soldiers in the car picked up a rifle. First, a burst of fire blasted the windshield. Then the rifle was extended towards the entrance. It fired. Bang 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 bang. The rough gunshots were continuous. The line of fire formed by the friction of the bullets in the air was particularly obvious in the dark night. The line of fire swept across the cordon, barricades, and soldiers. There was a cry of surprise in the square. Some soldiers even found it incredible. The man was actually shooting with one hand. You have to know that the automatic rifle they use weighs 4.7 kilograms. The recoils shooting with one hand makes it difficult to cause effective killing. Many times it is blind shooting, and even accidental injuries. But in the hands of the soldier on the car, the automatic rifle was as steady as a rock. Although his marksmanship was limited, he would not deviate from the target. Suddenly, under the suppression of the firepower of the automatic rifle, the patrolling soldiers at the entrance could only temporarily avoid the sharp edge. The wind was howling. Without the windshield, Luo Yan's ears were filled with the sound of the wind. His right hand, which had been tempered, easily controlled the automatic rifle to offset the recoil's shooting. He shot the bullets in the magazine. He did not change the magazine. Instead, he changed a rifle. He continued to shoot. Continue to suppress. He drove the off-road vehicle into the square and saw figures rushing towards him from all directions of the square, and they raised their guns and shot. Luo Yan immediately lowered his body, let the bullets fly over his head. He glanced at some oil drums piled not far away. It seemed that they were taken out to add oil when the convoy went out before. They had not been put back. So when the enemy came near the oil drums, he suddenly raised his gun and fired. Bang 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 bang. A string of fire swept over. The next second, there was a flash of fire, followed by a violent explosion. I don't know how many people were blown away. Even a burning oil drum flew into the air and landed next to Luo Yan's car. The raging flames blocked many soldiers. Luo Yan took the opportunity to run straight to the mecha warehouse. The warehouse door was open. A mecha was dispatched here just now. The door was still open. The soldiers at the door fired their guns. Luo Yan fired back. The two sides exchanged fire. Soon the soldiers at the door were either shot dead or forced away by Luo Yan. The off-road vehicle rushed into the mecha warehouse. Luo Yan stepped on the brakes hard. The car tires rubbed against the ground violently, making a sharp sound. Finally, it slid sideways for more than 10 meters and stopped. Luo Yan looked up. The mecha warehouse was brightly lit. As expected, there were 3 mecha parking spaces. One of them was vacant. The other 2, each parked a mecha. The one on the left was short and sturdy and looked like a heavy firepower model, but it was under maintenance. There is a maintenance shed next to the mecha, and half of the main engine of the mecha is exposed. It seems that it is being debugged and has not been assembled yet. Another mecha has a dusty body and the original paint color cannot be seen clearly. It looks old, especially the exhaust pipes. Such exhaust equipment is no longer used. It looks like a product of the old industrial era. It should be displayed in a museum. A laser chainsaw is directly installed on the left arm of the mecha. This does not seem to be the original accessory of the mecha. There are obvious welding marks between the forearm and the chainsaw. A standard rifle is placed on the weapon rack on the right. The gun is about 40 meters long, with a thick barrel and a caliber that seems to be slightly wider than the Shenwei rifle. The most eye-catching thing is a retractable cannon barrel behind the mecha. This weapon, comparable to a naval gun, interprets the word rough. Finally, the mecha's feet have huge pulleys, making it look like it is stepping on a pair of oversized skates. In particular, there are jets at the heels, which makes the mecha run and walk. It can also fly like a vehicle and accelerate when necessary. Overall, this mecha has a strong industrial style. There are too many traces of modification, but it has rifles, cannons, laser chainsaws, skates and jets. It has both medium range and long range firepower, close combat needs and speed. It can be said to be quite practical. Luo Yan jumped off the off-road vehicle and ran to the elevator next to the mecha. At this time, Black Hawk soldiers had already rushed in from outside the warehouse. They saw Luo Yan running into the elevator and immediately opened fire. Luo Yan pressed the start button and the elevator began to rise. He lay on the ground and fired back. In the line of fire between the two sides, the elevator came to the entrance of the cab. Luo Yan turned over and entered the cab, then closed the hatch. The instruments in the cab are also quite old, and this mecha does not have a panoramic window. The empathy system has also been eliminated long ago and only appears in the book. But these are not a problem for Luo Yan. He sat on the chair and quickly turned on various instruments. Then he calmed down, looked for the feeling, and began to empathize with the mecha. After a while, he began to see some pictures. In those pictures, he seemed to be farming and living an ordinary and fulfilling life. But one day, wild beasts came. They were all over the mountains and destroyed the forests and fields, turned the home into ruins. So he replaced the hoe with a heavy axe and joined the ranks of hunting wild beasts. Luo Yan opened his eyes again. He had achieved empathy with the mecha. In the empathy system, the signal was online. The neuronal connection was stable, reaching 105%. Luo Yan grabbed the old-fashioned somatosensory control ball with both hands and started the mecha. In the mecha warehouse, a captain shouted, "Hurry up, he's hiding in the mecha cab. Come up with me." At this moment, the light on the mecha suddenly turned on. A white light fell, illuminating the captain and the soldiers next to him, so that they couldn't open their eyes. Wait until they get used to the light. I saw the mech had picked up the rifle on the weapon rack next to it, then raised one foot and stepped onto the ground outside the parking space. This shook the ground of the mech hangar. People staggered as if they were drunk. Then someone exclaimed, "This is impossible. How can he drive the Wanderer?" The captain was also at a loss. Then I saw. The Wanderer activated the laser chainsaw, and the weapon immediately burst into a circle of blue light. With a fierce swing, a bright light mark was left in the air. I saw the Wanderer cut off the head of another mech placed next to it with the laser chainsaw. The heavy mech head fell to the ground. The ground was broken into pieces and dust was stirred up. Then, the wheels on the feet of the Wanderer all turned, and the mech squatted slightly to lower its center of gravity. With the roar of the engine, it did not go through the gate, but rushed directly to the wooden wall next to the mech warehouse. Chapter 94. Let him go or die. Block the square. Quick, block the square. The invader hid in the mecha warehouse. Quickly move the tanks here. Surround the warehouse. Don't let him escape. Where are the people? Where are they? Can't they hear what I say? Take the oil barrels away. Which genius left the oil barrels after filling up the oil? Are you trying to make things more difficult for yourselves? There's a firefight. There's a firefight inside. Wait, why did I hear them say that the Wanderer has been activated? Are you stupid? Both supervisors are not here. Who the hell can activate the Wanderer? In the square, teams and vehicles are gathering. They are constantly moving towards the mecha warehouse. At this moment, the wooden wall on the east side of the mecha warehouse has obvious bulges. The next second, the whole wall exploded. Countless large and small fragments fell from the sky like a rainstorm. There was a cry of surprise. Some unlucky people were hit by the fragments. Some were unconscious, some died suddenly. Even various tanks were shaken by the smash. Amid the flying debris and wood chips, a light shone, allowing people to see a huge human-shaped black shadow under the light, crashing through the wall and passing through the debris and wood chips. It was the Mecha Wanderer. I must be dazzled. It's really the Wanderer. Fuck. In a blink of an eye, the Wanderer lowered its center of gravity, spread its legs apart, and the wheels whistled at the soles of its feet. It passed through the square like a mobile fortress. A soldier saw the Mecha rushing towards him. He turned around and ran away in fear. Unexpectedly, he was tripped by a corpse on the ground and fell to the ground. He heard a roar behind him. He turned around. He saw the Mecha passing over his head. He could even see the mottled armor at the bottom of the Mecha and saw that the gaps between the armor that was not tightly connected were constantly emitting gas. The Wanderer passed over his head. Then he turned around when he reached the edge of the square. The rifle in his right hand fired at the Black Hawk Company building and the surrounding buildings. Bang 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 bang. Deafening gunshots echoed in the base. The Black Hawk Company building, as well as the surrounding material warehouses, ammunition warehouses, parking lots, maintenance cabins and other buildings, exploded one after another. Fragments flew everywhere, turning into ruins. After doing all this, the Wanderer turned around, and the jets on his feet discharged blue flames, letting the Mecha fly away quickly. A captain climbed up with a grey face and roared, "Communication machine. Who the hell has a communication machine? Give me one. My mine is broken." A moment later, far outside the base, the Mecha Black Hawk walking in the wilderness suddenly stopped. In the cab, Jiuying looked in the direction of the Falcon base. Seeing the fire and dust rising there, he didn't know what happened. Tonight, although the netherworld force field was used to simulate the environment inside the Yambu space, Wen Fenghua's Yuanli was sealed at the primary level. But the director was extraordinary, and Jiuying, who had already taken the advantage, also spent a lot of effort. Only then did he capture Wen Fenghua. Therefore, a lot of time was wasted. Until recently, they left the base to transfer Wen Fenghua. What are the two guys, Monk and Donkey Laozi, doing? It took so much time to kill a person. I can only drive the Black Hawk and act alone. Jiuying complained, while picking up the communicator, ready to contact the base to see what happened over there. A voice rang in the communicator. "Oh no, boss. Something happened. Someone invaded the base and drove away the Wanderer." Jiuying was stunned for a moment, then said in a deep voice, "Are you making fun of me? Drove away the Wanderer? That's Donkey Laozi's body. Who else can drive it beside him?" "No, boss, I'm not kidding you." At this moment, without any warning, a violent explosion sounded outside the cab, and the entire cab shook violently. Jiuying looked at the instrument next to him. It showed that the body was attacked, the back was hit, and part of the outer armor was damaged. The Black Hawk turned around immediately. In the cab, Jiuying saw, in the wilderness in the distance, a group of black shadows were approaching rapidly. Jiuying quickly raised the left arm of the Mecha. The armor of the Mecha's arm quickly unfolded, forming a one-handed shield. At the same time, he raised his rifle with his right hand, placed it next to the shield, and pointed it at the wilderness. After taking a defensive posture, Jiuying enlarged the picture. Under the moonlight, an old-fashioned Mecha was speeding over. A cannon stretched out from the back of the Mecha. It was this cannon that hit him just now. Jiuying was stunned. He blurted out, "It's really the Wanderer." He immediately opened the communication channel and tried to contact the Wanderer. Soon, the communication was connected. Jiuying said gloomily, "Donkey Laozi, is it you? Are you crazy?" But a strange voice sounded in the communicator. "Release Wen Fenghua, or die." The voice was very cold, as if talking about something insignificant. But it made Jiuying angry. He went from having nothing to owning a surface base. Although he was still a small figure, not everyone could threaten him. Of course, Jiuying was not so angry that he lost his mind. He said coldly, "Aren't you afraid of killing Wen Fenghua by mistake by attacking me? In that case, if I kill you, it will be revenge for him." The voice responded coldly. Jiuying frowned. He had a hunch. The pilot in the Wanderer was the type of person he least wanted to deal with. But Jiuying refused to give in. He sneered, "If you want to kill me, it depends on whether you have the ability to do so. You Before he finished speaking, the communication was interrupted. It was obvious that the other party took the initiative to disconnect. This made Jiuying's anger burn even more. Then, the opponent's cannon fired again. Boom. The sound of the cannon was clearly audible. The shell crossed the wide distance between the two and exploded into a fireball on the one-handed shield of the Black Hawk. The terrible impact caused the mecha to shake violently, and the one-handed shield was covered with cracks. If it was hit by another shot, this one-handed shield would probably be useless. After all, this is not a large shield, not a heavy shield. It was not designed to withstand artillery fire, and the Wanderer didn't attack other places. It only attacked the shield. This was an obvious provocation. Jiuying snorted and used the controller to open the armor on the chest of the Black Hawk. The 6-link missile launch bay inside was exposed. With the help of the computer, the Wanderer was locked. Jiuying pressed the fire button expressionlessly. Boom boom boom. In an instant, missiles flew out from under the chest armor of the Black Hawk, spraying flames. In the dark night, they drew a dazzling and complicated trajectory, like a grand firework, shooting at the Wanderer. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.